My name is Timmy, and the first time I stopped time, I used my incredible supernatural power to save half a piece of toast. That is not an exaggeration. I wish it was. I was 17, late for school, wearing one sock, carrying my backpack with my teeth, and trying to pour orange juice while my mother yelled that the bus was already at the corner. The toast slipped off my plate. I reached for it, missed, and thought, with the full desperation of a teenager who had exactly 12 seconds before becoming a pedestrian, I need one more second. Then the universe listened. Everything stopped. The toast hung in the air with the butter side facing the floor, because apparently even frozen time wanted to make fun of me. The orange juice became a shiny golden rope between the carton and the glass. My mother froze with one eyebrow raised. A fly stopped 2 centimeters from my ear. The clock on the microwave showed 7:43, and the little colon between the numbers did not blink. I did. Then I looked around. Then I panicked. Then time started again. The toast fell. I slapped it sideways. It bounced off the refrigerator, landed on my backpack, slid down the strap, and dropped directly into the dog's water bowl. So technically I saved it from the floor. That was day one. I spent the entire bus ride convincing myself I had imagined it. Maybe I had blinked weird. Maybe my brain had lagged. Maybe the orange juice had moved so slowly because I was tired. Maybe my mother had frozen because she had finally become disappointed in me on a molecular level. Then, during first period chemistry, Tyler Benson knocked a glass beaker off the table. I saw it tipping. My hand was too far away. Without thinking, I squeezed something inside my chest. It felt like flexing a muscle that had never existed before. The room stopped. This time I was ready enough to count. 1. That was all I got. I grabbed the beaker, but because I was still moving normally while everything else was frozen, I discovered the first stupid rule of my new ability. Moving through frozen time felt like walking through cold pudding. The air resisted me. Not enough to stop me, but enough to make every movement feel slightly dramatic, like I was underwater in an anime opening. I managed to catch the beaker. Time resumed. To everyone else, my hand had simply teleported beneath it. Tyler stared at me. The teacher stared at me. I stared at my own hand. Then I said I had excellent reflexes. Nobody believed me, especially because 10 minutes later I walked into a stool. That night I tested the ability properly. I placed a spoon on the edge of my desk, pushed it off, and froze time. 1 second. Exactly. I tried again. Nothing happened. I tried so hard my face turned red. Still nothing. I discovered rule number 2. I only got 1 freeze per day. 1 second, 1 use. That was the entire package. I had been chosen by mysterious cosmic forces and given the power to pause reality for less time than it took my father to sneeze. I went to sleep feeling insulted. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm because I was excited. I tossed a pencil in the air and froze time. The pencil stopped. I moved around it. 1 second passed. Then another. The pencil dropped. I caught it. 2 seconds. I stood there with the pencil in my hand and realized something so important that I forgot to breathe. The power had grown. Day 1 had given me 1 second. Day 2 gave me 2. Naturally, I did what any responsible person would do with this information. I went to the kitchen and tried to steal a sausage off my father's plate. I froze time. Reached across the table, grabbed the sausage, and discovered that food also felt weird in frozen time. It was like pulling something out of invisible glue. I got it halfway to my mouth before the 2 seconds ended. My father watched his sausage travel through the air. It stopped beside my face. I slowly lowered it. He slowly lowered his newspaper. I told him the sausage had attacked me. He took it back. For the next week, my life became a series of experiments so dumb that no scientist would ever publish them. On day 3, I tried to tie my shoelaces during the freeze. I got 1 shoe done. On day 4, I tried to change seats in class while everyone was frozen. I made it 2 desks over before time restarted, and the guy beside me screamed because I had apparently appeared from nowhere while holding his calculator. On day 5, I used the freeze to catch a basketball that was about to hit me in the face, which made me look incredibly cool until I threw it back and missed the entire court. On day 6, I tested whether I could move people. I could. Barely. People in frozen time were ridiculously heavy. Not normal heavy. More like the universe had glued their shoes to the ground. I tried to rotate my friend Marcus 10 degrees while he was standing at his locker. I managed maybe 3 degrees. When time resumed, Marcus looked down at his feet and accused the hallway of moving. I did not correct him. On day 7, I discovered I could take things out of people's hands more easily than I could move the people themselves. This led to my first official crime. I stole Marcus's pudding cup. Then I put it in his other hand. That was the whole crime. I was not ready for organized villainy. By the second week, I had 14 seconds. 14 seconds does not sound like much until nobody else gets any. 14 seconds in frozen time was enough for me to walk across a classroom, peek at a worksheet, return to my chair, and still have enough time to adjust my hair. I began carrying a stopwatch in my pocket, but it froze with everything else, so I learned to count in my head. 1 Mississippi was too slow. Normal counting was too inconsistent. Eventually, I trained myself using a metronome until I could feel each second almost perfectly. I also discovered the freeze ended early if I wanted. That was useful because I did not always want to stand in dead silence waiting for my daily power to expire. The silence was the strangest part. When time stopped, the world lost sound. No fans, no engines, no buzzing lights, no people coughing, no chairs scraping. Nothing. At first it was creepy. Then I realized it was the only time high school was peaceful. By day 20, I had developed a system. I called my power the extra second. The name was terrible, but I was 17. Every midnight, the maximum duration increased by 1 second. If I did not use it, the time did not stack. I had 1 freeze per calendar day, and once I used it, it was gone until midnight. If I froze at 11:59 and stayed frozen through midnight, the new day did not refresh me until time started again. I learned that one the hard way after staring at a frozen clock for 21 seconds like an idiot. The most important discovery came on day 23. I could touch certain objects and make them behave more normally. It was not automatic. If I grabbed a pen, the pen moved with me. If I released it, it froze wherever it was. If I tossed it, the moment it left my hand, it usually stopped in midair. That meant I could build ridiculous little frozen sculptures. Pens, coins, erasers, a grape. One time I arranged 6 potato chips around Marcus's head like a salty halo. When time resumed, all 6 chips launched in different directions because gravity remembered its job at once. Marcus thought the cafeteria had exploded. My confidence grew. My intelligence did not. On day 30, I had half a minute. 30 seconds of frozen time. That was enough to change the outcome of almost any tiny problem. When a teacher called on me and I had not been listening, I froze time, walked to the board, read the question, checked the open textbook on her desk, returned to my seat, and gave the answer the instant time resumed. For 3 glorious days, my teachers thought I had become a genius. Then one of them asked me to explain my answer. I froze time again out of panic. Unfortunately, I had already used my freeze that morning to get an extra hash brown in the cafeteria. Nothing happened. I stared at the teacher. The teacher stared at me. I said my genius was tired. That was when I learned a very important lesson. Never waste the daily freeze before lunch unless food is involved. At 40 seconds, I could escape awkward conversations. At 45, I could move behind someone before they turned around. At 50, I could take a surprise quiz, freeze time, read half the chapter, and still have enough time left to regret not studying normally. At 60 seconds, everything changed. 1 full minute. A minute sounds short when you are waiting for a microwave. A minute is enormous when the entire planet is paused. On day 60, I froze in the middle of the school courtyard and walked around. Hundreds of students were locked in place. A soccer ball hovered over the grass. A girl's hair was suspended in the wind. A pigeon floated above a trash can like someone had paused a badly rendered video game. For the first time, I did not use my power to fix a problem. I just explored. I walked into the principal's office. The door was open. The principal was frozen behind his desk with a sandwich halfway to his mouth. I looked at his computer. I looked at the stack of detention slips. I looked at the candy jar. I took 1 candy. Then I put $2 beside the jar because I had suddenly become morally complicated. I walked back outside. I had 20 seconds left. I stood in the center of the courtyard and looked at everyone. No one knew I was moving. No one knew I had left. No one would remember any gap because for them there was no gap. When the minute ended, sound slammed back into the world. Shoes scraped. People shouted. The pigeon completed its dive into the trash can. I stood exactly where I had started, and I understood the terrifying truth. My power was not strong yet, but it was going to be. Every day. One more second. No training needed. No secret crystals. No ancient master. No difficult quests. All I had to do was survive the calendar. I started thinking ahead. In a year, I would have over 6 minutes. In 5 years, over half an hour. In 10 years, roughly an hour. The math made my brain tingle. Then I did the most teenager thing possible. I wrote a list titled Things to Do When I Can Stop Time for 10 Minutes. The first item was eat at buffet without waiting. The second was win argument by researching answer mid-argument. The third was see what is inside locked janitor closet. The fourth was become magician. The fifth was replace Marcus's shoes with identical shoes one size larger and never explain. This list became my life plan. My first serious challenge arrived on day 72 in the form of a vending machine. The machine ate my last $2. I pressed the button. Nothing. I shook the machine. Nothing. I threatened it. Nothing. Marcus told me to accept defeat. I looked at the machine. The machine looked back at me with the cold confidence of an enemy who had stolen before. I froze time. 72 seconds. I walked around the machine. It was too heavy to move. The front glass was thick. The service door was locked. I could have gone to get a teacher. Instead, I spent the entire freeze examining the machine like a detective. Near the bottom, behind the return slot, I found a tiny gap where one of the internal plastic guards had cracked. I shoved 2 fingers through, caught the edge of the stuck snack spiral and pulled. It barely moved. The air resistance made everything harder. I kept pulling. Time resumed. The spiral snapped forward. My chips dropped. So did 4 candy bars, 3 bags of crackers, and a packet of cookies. Marcus stared at the pile. I stared at the pile. Then the vending machine made a sad grinding noise and dropped a bottle of water too. Marcus called me the chosen one. I told him the machine feared me. That was the moment I realized I could use frozen time to understand systems before anyone knew I had touched them. Locks, machines, puzzles, documents, people's positions. I could take a minute to think in the middle of a split-second situation. My life became easier. Too easy. When my mother asked who had left a wet towel on the couch, I froze time, inspected the evidence, found dog hair on the towel, remembered I had used it to dry the dog, returned to the kitchen, and admitted it was me with such a detailed explanation that she became suspicious anyway. When Marcus challenged me to a thumb wrestling match, I froze time, repositioned my thumb, resumed, and won instantly. He demanded a rematch. I did it again the next day. After 6 straight impossible losses, he began training his thumb with a rubber band. I felt bad. Not bad enough to stop. By day 90, I could freeze the world for a minute and a half. That was when I made my first mistake with a locked room. The janitor closet from my list had become an obsession. Nobody cared about it except me, which made me care even more. It was always locked. It had no window. The janitor carried the key on a retractable cord. For weeks I imagined secret tunnels, forbidden school records, buried treasure, maybe a tiny wizard. On day 93, I finally made my move. The janitor unlocked the closet during lunch. I waited nearby. The moment he opened the door, I froze time. I slipped past him. Inside I found mops, buckets, a shelf of paper towels, 600 tiny trash bags, a broken chair, a vacuum cleaner that looked older than my father, and one industrial-sized container labeled lemon floor cleaner. That was it. No treasure, no wizard, no mystery. I had spent months dreaming about cleaning supplies. Disappointed, I turned to leave. Then I noticed something horrible. The janitor's frozen body filled almost the entire doorway. I could squeeze past him, but my backpack caught on the handle of a mop bucket. I pulled. The bucket moved. 3 mops leaned. A broom shifted. A tower of paper towel rolls began collapsing in extreme slow motion because I was touching half the shelf. I had 30 seconds left. I tried to fix it. That made it worse. Soon I was trapped in a frozen avalanche of cleaning equipment. I dragged 2 mops aside. A bottle rolled. I caught it. A broom fell. I caught that. My backpack knocked over a dustpan. I stepped on the dustpan. The handle shot upward. It smacked the shelf. More paper towels came loose. I had 8 seconds. I abandoned dignity. I dove between the janitor and the doorframe. My shirt snagged on his key cord. I twisted. The clip snapped. I flew into the hallway. Time resumed. Behind me, the closet exploded. Mops, towels, bottles, and one mysteriously unsecured plunger blasted into the corridor. The janitor shouted. Students screamed. The plunger stuck to the wall. I was lying 6 feet away, wearing the janitor's keys around my neck. Everyone looked at me. I looked at the keys, then at the destroyed closet, then at the janitor. I said I could explain. I could not. That incident taught me 3 things. First, never enter a small frozen room through a doorway occupied by a large frozen adult. Second, chaos waits patiently. If I disturbed 10 things during stop time, all 10 things continued at once when time resumed. Third, I needed to become much better at moving, so I trained. Not in a cool mountain temple, at the grocery store. Every Saturday, my parents sent me to buy food. Grocery stores had wide aisles, carts, shelves, obstacles, and plenty of objects to practice with. I would freeze time and run carefully through the aisles. At first, the frozen air slowed me badly. After weeks, I learned to lean forward and cut through it. I learned that loose clothing dragged more. I started wearing tighter jackets. I learned that if I kept one hand on a shopping cart, the cart moved almost normally with me, but it became heavier the faster I pushed. I learned that liquids were a nightmare. If I touched a cup of soda, the cup moved, but the liquid inside sometimes stayed frozen until my influence spread through it. The first time I tried this, I moved the cup but left a perfect cylinder of soda hanging in the air. I stared at it. Then time resumed. The cylinder collapsed. I was soaked. A woman nearby gasped because, from her perspective, I had spontaneously become cola. By day 120, I could freeze 2 minutes. 2 minutes was enough to create miracles. It was also enough to create crimes so petty they almost became art. Marcus had developed a habit of stealing 1 fry from my lunch every day. I warned him. He continued. So on day 121, I froze time and replaced every fry on his tray with carrot sticks from the salad bar. I did not steal the fries. I carefully moved them to an empty bowl beside him. When time resumed, Marcus grabbed a carrot without looking, bit into it, and stared at his tray like reality had betrayed him. He checked under the table. He checked behind his drink. He counted the carrots. Then he saw the bowl of fries beside him. He looked at me. I ate one of my fries. He spent the rest of lunch accusing vegetables of witchcraft. I began to understand that the best use of impossible power was not money, fame, or influence. It was confusion. Confusion was free. Confusion left no fingerprints. Confusion turned ordinary Tuesday afternoons into legends. I became an invisible editor of small moments. A kid threw a paper airplane at a teacher. I froze time and rotated it. It flew back and hit the kid. Someone tossed a coin. I caught it during frozen time, flipped it over, and returned it to the same spot. Marcus bet heads and lost 11 times in a row over 11 days. A classmate tried to take a dramatic photo with a milk carton balanced on his head. I froze time, placed a second carton on top, and resumed. The photo became famous at school because nobody could explain how 2 cartons were stacked. I never did anything cruel. At least, not intentionally. My rule was simple. If the joke would ruin someone's day, I did not do it. If the joke would make them question physics for 30 seconds, it was perfect. And then came the talent show. Our school talent show was famous for being terrible. People sang badly. People danced nervously. One year, a student performed a 3-minute routine with a yo-yo and accidentally hit a judge. I entered as a magician. Marcus thought this was the funniest thing he had ever heard because he had seen me fail to shuffle cards. I told him I had been training. This was technically true. I had been training the universe to stop. By the day of the show, I had 2 minutes and 47 seconds. My act used no complicated tricks. That was the trick. I walked onto the stage wearing a cheap black jacket. I showed the audience a red ball. I tossed it upward. I froze time. Then I walked off stage. I went behind the curtain, grabbed a blue ball, returned, placed it exactly where the red ball had been, and took the red ball away. Time resumed. The blue ball fell into my hand. The audience made a sound I had never heard before. It was not applause. It was the sound of 200 brains hitting an invisible wall. For the second trick, I asked Marcus to stand on stage and hold a deck of cards. I had prepared this one without using frozen time. I already knew the top card. I told him to throw the deck into the air. The cards exploded upward. I could not freeze again because I only had one use per day. That was intentional. I reached into the mess and caught the chosen card using normal luck. Except I caught the wrong one. I looked at it. It was the 4 of clubs. I needed the Queen of Hearts. The audience waited. Marcus smiled. I said the 4 of clubs was merely shy. Then I threw it over my shoulder and announced the Queen of Hearts had gone somewhere more comfortable. A girl in the front row looked down. The Queen of Hearts was sticking out of her shoe. I had planted it there before the show. The crowd lost its mind. Marcus stopped smiling. I won first place. This was important because I had accidentally discovered the greatest camouflage for a supernatural ability. Magic. If people saw me do something impossible after I announced I was doing a trick, they did not call scientists. They applauded. I became obsessed. I started learning real sleight of hand so I would not need the freeze every time. That made me better even when time was moving. Within months, I could palm coins, force cards, pick simple locks, and misdirect people. The funny part was that my actual supernatural power pushed me to develop normal skills. The less I needed the power, the more dangerous the power became. By day 180, I had 3 minutes. 3 full minutes outside everybody else's existence. I could walk into the school office, read a document, walk back, and nobody would know I had moved. I could prepare answers. I could inspect a room. I could escape from embarrassing situations. I could fix mistakes before anyone saw them. And because I was still a teenager, the greatest challenge of my supernatural career arrived not as a supervillain, but as a girl named Nina asking me a question I was not prepared to answer. Nina was smart, funny, and had the terrifying ability to look directly at me while speaking. We were in the library. She asked whether I wanted to go with her to the spring carnival on Saturday. My brain immediately left my body. I froze time. The entire library stopped. Nina stood in front of me, waiting. I had 3 minutes. I spent the first 30 seconds walking in a circle. Then I went to the relationship section of the library. There was no relationship section. I found psychology. Too complicated. I found poetry. Worse. I found a book about communication and read 2 pages. It said to listen carefully and respond honestly. I felt cheated. I had stopped the entire planet, and the best advice was basically say what you mean. I returned to Nina. I had 40 seconds left. I practiced 5 responses. The first sounded desperate. The second sounded too casual. The third made me sound like I was accepting a business contract. The fourth included the phrase, "I am available." I hated myself. I finally let time resume and said yes. 1 syllable. 3 minutes of preparation. 1 syllable. Nina smiled. My knees nearly stopped time without permission. That was when I realized my power could give me infinite confidence without giving me any actual courage. Those were different things. Still, the carnival went well. Mostly. I used my freeze early because Nina almost dropped her phone from the Ferris wheel platform. I caught it. She called my reflexes scary. I pretended that was normal. Then, because I had spent my daily freeze, I had to survive the rest of the date as a regular human. This was horrifying. No pause button. No thinking room. No invisible escape. And somehow, it was fun. We ate fried dough. We played games. I won her a stuffed shark by throwing rings normally. The shark was ugly. She loved it. For one evening, I forgot about the power. Then midnight arrived while I was walking home. I felt the new seconds settle into me. Not physically. More like a tiny click behind my thoughts. 181 seconds. I looked up at the stars and wondered how big this would become. At the time, I thought 3 minutes was unbelievable. I had no idea that 3 minutes was still the tutorial. The tutorial ended during finals week. By then, everyone at school had developed a theory about me. Some people thought I was secretly athletic because I kept catching things that should have hit me. Some thought I was a professional magician because objects kept appearing where they should not. Marcus believed I was being protected by the spirit of dramatic timing. He was closer than he knew. Nina believed I was simply weird. She was completely correct. My daily freeze had climbed past 3.5 minutes when our history teacher announced the final exam would include one giant essay question chosen from a list of 12. 12. I had studied 8. Naturally, the test used one of the other 4. I stared at the paper. The question stared back. My grade was standing at the edge of a cliff. I could have guessed. I could have written nonsense. I could have accepted the consequences of poor preparation like a mature person. Instead, I stopped the universe. The classroom became a museum of academic suffering. Pencils froze above paper. One student was mid-yawn. Marcus had already written his name and nothing else. I got up. The teacher's desk had 3 textbooks on it. I found the right chapter and started reading. 3.5 minutes suddenly felt short. I skimmed like my life depended on it. Dates, names, causes, consequences. A paragraph about trade policy that felt personally hostile. I memorized as much as I could. Then I returned to my desk. I had maybe 10 seconds left. I grabbed my pencil. Time resumed. The teacher did not notice anything. Neither did anyone else. I wrote the best essay of my life. It was so good that the teacher wrote excellent preparation at the top. I stared at those words for a long time. The guilt lasted nearly 7 minutes. Then Marcus showed me his paper. He had somehow answered a question about 19th century labor movements with a paragraph about pirates. My guilt disappeared. I graduated. Not at the top of the class, not even close, but with a reputation for being impossible to surprise. At graduation, the principal dropped one of the diploma folders. I froze time, caught it, returned to my place and resumed. The principal blinked at his suddenly empty hand and then noticed the folder on the table. I pretended not to see anything. That summer, I finally crossed the 4-minute mark. 4 minutes made me dangerous around paperwork. My first job was at a local electronics store where customers asked questions such as whether a toaster needed internet. I was not supposed to know every product, but every product had a manual. A customer would ask a difficult question. I would freeze time, walk to the display, read the label, check the manual, sometimes search the store computer, though frozen electronics were annoying because screens stopped updating unless I kept physical contact with the device, and even then they behaved unpredictably. Then I would return and answer instantly. People thought I was an expert. I was 19 years old and had once put aluminum foil in a microwave. Expertise is mostly timing. My manager, Mr. Bell, loved me. He said I had the fastest response time of any employee he had ever seen. This was unfair, but technically true. I became the store's emergency problem solver. Barcode scanner broken? Freeze time? Inspect cables. Read error label? Resume. Look clever. Customer dropped a television remote behind a display? Freeze time. Crawl under shelf. Grab it. Resume. Pretend my arm was already down there. 2 customers reaching for the final discounted speaker at once? Freeze time. Move the speaker 6 inches toward the nicer one. I was not a hero. I was retail karma. Then came the locked stockroom incident. Our inventory system claimed we had one limited edition game console in stock. A customer had driven 2 hours for it. Mr. Bell searched the shelves. Nothing. The computer insisted it existed. The customer looked ready to begin a speech about false advertising. I froze time. 4 minutes and 22 seconds. I ran into the stockroom. The stockroom was enormous, crowded and organized according to a system apparently invented by raccoons. Boxes reached the ceiling. Labels faced walls. A tower of microwaves blocked one aisle. I checked the console section. Nothing. I checked returns. Nothing. I checked damaged goods. Nothing. 2 minutes left. I climbed a ladder. From the top, I saw a small box behind a row of printers. Wrong size. I climbed down. 1 minute. I found a handwritten note taped under the inventory desk. Promo unit moved to cage. The cage was locked. The key hung from Mr. Bell's belt outside. 35 seconds. I sprinted through the frozen store. Mr. Bell was standing beside the customer. I carefully unclipped his keyring. Ran back. Unlocked the cage. Found the console. Carried it out. Locked the cage. Returned the keys. Carried the box toward the counter. 3 seconds. I realized I could not simply be standing there holding the missing console when time resumed. 2 seconds. I tossed the box. Bad idea. The moment it left my hands, it froze in the air directly beside Mr. Bell. 1 second. I stepped back. Time resumed. The box dropped. Mr. Bell caught it against his chest by pure instinct. The customer gasped. Mr. Bell looked down at the console that had apparently materialized in front of him. I pointed at it and said, very calmly, that we had found one. Mr. Bell looked at me, then at the box, then at his keys. He checked his pockets. I smiled. He promoted me 2 weeks later. This was how my career began. Not through ambition, through cosmic cheating and accidental box teleportation. Around this time, Nina left for a university 3 hours away. We tried long distance. My power could stop time. It could not stop train schedules. It felt insulting. We stayed together for a while, then eventually decided we were better as friends. There was no dramatic betrayal, no villain, no rainstorm. We simply became two people moving in different directions. I did not freeze time during that conversation. I thought about it. I could have given myself 4 extra minutes to choose perfect words, but I knew by then that some moments should keep moving. Besides, if I had frozen time, I probably would have spent all 4 minutes eating the fries she had ordered. I knew myself. By the end of the first year, my maximum freeze was 6 minutes and 5 seconds. I celebrated day 365 with Marcus. He had gone to community college nearby and still believed my luck was suspicious. We met at a diner just before midnight. At 11:59, he bet me I could not finish an entire plate of pancakes before the day ended. I accepted. The clock changed. I froze time. 6 minutes and 6 seconds. Then I discovered a problem I should have predicted. Eating during stop time was awful. Food resisted movement until I touched it. Chewing worked because the food was inside my influence, but swallowing felt strangely slow. Water behaved like syrup. Also, I had no idea whether digestion happened while time was frozen. Halfway through the first pancake, I became concerned that I might be creating an internal pancake traffic jam. I stopped. I looked at Marcus, frozen with a smug expression. I could not allow that face to win, so I changed strategy. I cut the pancakes into tiny pieces. I placed the pieces in my pockets. All of them. I cleaned the plate. Then I returned to my seat and resumed time. Marcus's expression collapsed. The plate was empty. My cheeks were empty. He checked under the table. He checked the booth. He made me stand up. Pancake chunks fell out of my jacket. I lost the bet. He still bought breakfast because he said whatever I had done was worth the price. That night, for the first time, I told him, not everything, just enough. I asked him to hold a spoon. I froze time for 1 second even though I had more available, stepped behind him and resumed. Marcus turned around. I was standing across the diner. His spoon was in my hand. For a full 5 seconds he made no sound. Then he looked under the table. I asked what he was doing. He said he was checking for trapdoors. I told him there was no trapdoor. He checked anyway. Eventually I explained the rule. 1 second longer every day, 1 use. Everything freezes except me and anything I deliberately bring into motion. Marcus listened. Then he asked the most important question any human being had ever asked me. Could I use it to avoid waiting at the dentist? I had chosen the right friend. Marcus became my unofficial strategist. This was both helpful and catastrophic. He made a list of potential uses. Some were brilliant. Some were illegal. Some were physically impossible. One simply said, become unbeatable at hide and seek. We tested that one first. He counted to 10. I froze time. I left his apartment, walked down the street, entered a laundromat, changed my mind because that felt too far. Returned, hid inside his bathroom. Time resumed. Marcus searched the apartment for 20 minutes. I had won. But I also got bored and revealed myself by flushing the toilet. His next idea was instant costume changes. We built a magician act around it. This became a side job. Marcus would stand on stage as my assistant, mostly because he liked applause and owned 3 jackets that sparkled. We performed at birthday parties, restaurants, small theaters, and once at a retirement home where an 80-year-old woman heckled us so aggressively that Marcus forgot his lines. My main trick was simple. I would stand behind a curtain for half a second. During that half second, I would freeze time and change clothes. At first, I needed almost the entire 6 minutes because changing clothes in stopped air was exhausting. I got better. Soon I could switch jackets, hats, shoes, and props in under 2 minutes of frozen time. To the audience, I transformed instantly. We called the act Timmy, and the almost magical Marcus. Marcus hated the name. That was why I kept it. The money was decent. The attention was better. More importantly, performing taught me to control where people looked. If I ever slipped up with my power, I could turn the mistake into a trick. One night, during a restaurant show, I froze time to swap a bouquet of plastic flowers for real roses. I ran into the kitchen to grab the roses. The freezer door was open. A cook stood frozen beside it. I slipped past him. My sleeve caught a bag of frozen peas. The peas fell. I caught the bag. My elbow hit a tray. The tray shifted. I grabbed it. My foot hit a bucket. The bucket tipped. I trapped it against the counter with my knee. Now I was standing inside a frozen kitchen holding roses, peas, a metal tray, and a bucket while balancing on one foot. I had 2 minutes left. I tried to reverse the disaster. The tray went back. The bucket went back. The peas went back. And then I accidentally placed the peas on the wrong shelf. I corrected them. I dropped the roses. I caught them. One rose snapped. I replaced it with another. I ran back to the stage. Time resumed. The audience saw the plastic flowers become roses. They applauded. In the kitchen behind me, 6 cooks began shouting because a bag of peas had somehow moved from shelf 3 to shelf 4. That was when Marcus told me I was wasting my gift. I expected a speech about money. Instead, he said I could use 6 minutes to become the greatest prankster who had ever lived. I told him I was already working on it. Our target was a local bowling alley. Every Friday, the owner rang a little brass bell whenever someone bowled a perfect strike during league night. Marcus wanted the bell to ring by itself. That was too easy. I wanted the bell to ring, move to another table, ring again, then somehow end up wearing a tiny party hat. We spent a week preparing. On Friday, a player threw a beautiful ball. The pins fell. The crowd cheered. The owner reached for the bell. I froze time. 6 minutes and 41 seconds. I moved the bell to the next table. I positioned Marcus's tiny party hat on top. Then I returned to my seat. Time resumed. The owner slapped empty wood. Everyone laughed. He spotted the bell one table over. He frowned, walked to it, and rang it. That should have been the end. But Marcus had secretly added his own trick. He had tied a nearly invisible thread to the party hat. When the owner rang the bell, Marcus pulled. The hat flew off. It landed in a pitcher of soda. The owner stared at Marcus. Marcus stared at me. I had no freeze left. We ran. The prank was not our best work. Still, it created a rumor that the bowling alley was haunted. Business increased. The owner eventually thanked us without knowing he was thanking us. That became another rule. Supernatural nonsense was acceptable if everyone somehow benefited. The second year of my power was when ordinary locks stopped mattering. I never became a master thief. I became something more embarrassing. A master of not wanting to ask permission. Locked bathroom at a gas station? Freeze time. Find employee key. Use bathroom. Return key. Apartment door slammed shut while my keys were inside? Freeze time. Inspect every window. Discover one was unlocked. Climb fire escape, enter, resume, office meeting running long, freeze time, walk out, use vending machine, return with improved emotional stability. It was not glamorous, but daily life became smooth. Every inconvenience had a secret menu. The problem was I started becoming dependent on it. If a line was too long, I felt annoyed. If I forgot something in another room, I wanted to freeze. If someone took too long to answer a question, my brain automatically reached for the power. Marcus noticed. He told me I was becoming time-spoiled. I told him that was not a real phrase. He said it was now. To prove I was not time-spoiled, I went 1 full week without using the freeze. It was terrible. On Monday, I spilled coffee and had to clean it. On Tuesday, I missed a bus and had to wait 16 minutes. On Wednesday, a man in front of me at the grocery store paid entirely in coins. I nearly collapsed. On Thursday, I got trapped in a conversation with an old neighbor who described every type of tomato in his garden. On Friday, I dropped my phone. I caught it with my foot because years of reacting to disasters had actually improved my reflexes. On Saturday, I completed an escape room with Marcus without cheating. We finished with 2 minutes left. The staff said we were one of the fastest teams that month. On Sunday, I realized something uncomfortable. The power had made me better at solving problems, but only when I treated frozen time as a place to think instead of a button to erase inconvenience. So I made a new rule. I would not freeze just because I was impatient. That rule lasted 9 days. A man at the bank took 7 minutes to choose a pen. I broke. By my 21st birthday, I had almost 13 minutes. 13 minutes was no longer a trick. It was a private world. I could freeze time downtown, walk 3 blocks, visit a store, inspect something, and get back. I could read several pages of a contract while the person handing it to me still had their arm extended. I could prepare a speech in the middle of the speech. I could enter a meeting knowing nothing, pause at the first difficult question, read every document in the folder, organize my thoughts, and answer like I had been preparing all week. This skill accidentally got me hired at a marketing company. I had applied for an entry-level job because Mr. Bell kept telling me to find something with better hours. The interview was going badly. The interviewer, a woman named Ms. Ortega, asked me what I would do if a client rejected a campaign idea at the last possible moment. My mind went blank. I froze time. 12 minutes and 50-something seconds. I stood up, walked around the office, read the framed company values, read a case study on the shelf, looked at the notes in my own folder. Then I noticed a whiteboard covered in planning diagrams. I spent 10 minutes understanding how the company actually worked. I returned to my chair. Time resumed. I gave an answer built from their own internal process. Ms. Ortega stopped writing. She asked where I had learned that framework. I said I had done my research. That was true if we defined research as trespassing around the room while she was temporarily immobilized. I got the job. Corporate life was made for me. Meetings were slow. Documents were everywhere. People asked questions they did not expect immediate answers to. I became terrifyingly prepared. Whenever someone presented a slide with tiny text, I froze and walked right up to the screen. Whenever someone mentioned a file I had not read, I froze and read it. Whenever my boss asked for my opinion, I could spend 10 minutes constructing the perfect response. People thought I was calm under pressure. I was not calm. I was panicking in a private universe where nobody could see me. One afternoon, Ms. Ortega asked me to present a campaign proposal to a difficult client. The client was famous for interrupting. Marcus told me to use the freeze every time he interrupted and reposition myself slightly closer until he became confused. I ignored this. Mostly. The presentation began. I spoke for 30 seconds. The client interrupted. I froze time. I reviewed my notes. I took a sip of water. I moved one step to the left without thinking. Time resumed. I answered him. He interrupted again later. The next day, during a follow-up meeting, I had another freeze. I moved one step closer. This continued across several meetings. After a month, he finally asked whether my chair was getting closer to him every time we met. I said no. It absolutely was. I had discovered long-term pranking. Not jokes that happened instantly. Jokes that unfolded over weeks. That was much more powerful. I started moving a decorative plant in the office 1 inch every day. No one noticed for the first month. Then the plant reached the copy machine. People argued about who had moved it. I kept going. Eventually, it crossed the entire office. One morning, it was beside the elevator. Ms. Ortega demanded to know who kept relocating the plant. Everyone denied it. I froze time that afternoon and moved it back to its original place. The next morning, the entire office went silent. One coworker whispered that the building was cursed. Productivity improved because nobody wanted to stay late. I considered that a success. But my favorite office trick involved perfect responses. If someone tried to embarrass me with a clever comment, I could freeze time, spend 12 minutes thinking of a comeback, reject 11 options, rehearse the 12th, resume, and deliver it instantly. People began describing me as quick-witted. This was outrageous. I was the slowest quick-witted person alive. Once, Marcus insulted my haircut. I froze time, walked to the bathroom, studied my hair, decided he was right, returned, resumed. Then I thanked him. It completely ruined his momentum. By the end of year 2, I had over 12 minutes every day, and I thought I understood my ability. I was wrong. The next discovery happened because Marcus and I missed a flight. We were traveling to perform at a small convention. Our first flight was delayed. Our connecting flight was in another terminal. We ran. The gate closed. Marcus argued with the desk agent. I checked the time. 11:57 p.m. We were in a different time zone from home. That detail hit me harder than it should have. My power reset at midnight. But whose midnight? I had always assumed local time because it refreshed when my phone showed a new date. Now I had traveled. I had used my freeze earlier that day. At midnight in the new time zone. I felt the familiar click. New day, new second. I froze for half a second to test it. It worked. Marcus stopped mid-complaint. I resumed. Then a terrible idea entered my mind. We did not board the flight. We forgot the convention. We spent the next 6 hours researching time zones, date changes, and the international dateline. The following month, we booked the stupidest vacation in human history. We flew west, then east, then west again. I discovered the power did not care about 24 hours. It cared about the date displayed by the local world around me. If I legitimately crossed into a place where the calendar date advanced and then lived through a new midnight, the ability counted it. If I crossed backward to yesterday, it did not subtract seconds. That meant the universe had made one catastrophic mistake. It had connected my supernatural growth to civil timekeeping. And civil timekeeping had loopholes. The first loophole trip nearly killed my bank account. Not me. My bank account. Marcus found a route where, with enough flights, trains, ferries, and one deeply suspicious shuttle van, we could experience midnight in several different time zones during one long stretch of travel. The goal was simple. Chase midnight west. Every time the local date rolled forward while I was physically present, my maximum freeze gained another second. Normally that happened once per day. If I moved fast enough, I could make it happen again. And again. And again, the universe had given me a daily reward system, and apparently forgotten that airplanes existed. Our first attempt was ugly. We started in a city where midnight came early. The clock hit 12. Click. 1 second added. We ran to the airport. Our flight was delayed because someone had loaded the wrong luggage cart. I wanted to freeze time and fix it, but using the power would not help the schedule because the airplane itself would be frozen. So we waited. This was the cruelest part of becoming powerful. I could stop time but not make public transportation arrive sooner. We landed farther west with 23 minutes before midnight. We sprinted through the terminal. Marcus lost a shoe on an escalator. I retrieved it. We made it outside. Midnight hit. Click. Another second. Then we took a train. Then a rental car. Then a ferry. By the end of 30 hours, I had gained 7 extra seconds instead of 1. 7. We had spent more money than I earned in a week to become 7 seconds stronger. Marcus called it a success. I called him financially dangerous. But the proof mattered. If I could chase enough midnights, I could speed up my growth. The problem was travel cost. The solution was my magician career. Timmy and the almost magical Marcus had become popular online. Someone uploaded a video of my instant costume change. People slowed the footage down frame by frame. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. One frame I wore a white jacket. The next frame I wore a black one. No blur. No transition. No hidden movement. Comments exploded. Some people said editing. Some said trapdoor. Some said twins. One person said I was a government hologram. Marcus printed that comment and framed it. We began getting larger bookings. Then I realized I could build an entire stage show around one daily freeze. That one freeze just had to be spectacular enough. I would perform several normal tricks first. Cards, ropes, boxes, coins. Then the finale would use the power. My favorite finale began with a completely empty stage. The audience inspected it. Then a curtain dropped for less than a second. During frozen time, Marcus and I had a prepared crew waiting backstage. I froze. I sprinted behind the curtain. I touched a rolling platform loaded with furniture. Dragging it through frozen air was horrible, but wheels helped. I brought out a table, 2 chairs, a lamp, a fake tree, a bookshelf, a rug, a grandfather clock, a fully set dinner tray. Then I placed Marcus in one chair. Moving him while frozen was still heavy. But he had learned to go limp before the freeze, which somehow made it easier. I posed him with a newspaper. I sat in the other chair. I resumed time. The curtain rose. To the audience, an entire living room had appeared in less than 1 second, with both of us already sitting inside it. People screamed. One man stood up and shouted that he refused to accept this. That was my favorite review. The show paid well. Very well. We toured. Touring meant travel. Travel meant time zones. Time zones meant extra midnights. Suddenly my job and my power growth fed each other. We built our schedule like insane astronomers. We did not ask, where should we perform next? We asked, where can we perform next while intercepting midnight? Our manager hated us. Her name was Dana. Dana had managed bands, comedians, and one famous dog. She said we were the hardest act she had ever worked with because Marcus kept requesting flights at impossible hours, and I refused to explain why. I told her I liked night skies. She told me I liked wasting money. Both were true. Within 6 months, we had increased my normal growth by hundreds of extra seconds. The power crossed 20 minutes, then 25, then 30. 30 minutes changed everything again. Half an hour of frozen reality was enough to do actual projects. I could clean my apartment while no time passed. I could read an entire contract. I could walk several miles if I was willing to arrive sweaty and confused. I could prepare a full meal, though cooking during stop time was almost impossible because heat transfer became strange. A stove flame froze. Boiling water froze. Microwaves froze. I could chop vegetables and arrange ingredients, but if I wanted heat, I had to resume time. This led to my invention of what Marcus called temporal meal prep. I would freeze, prepare every ingredient, unfreeze for 30 seconds, freeze the next day, continue. It was completely unnecessary. I did it because the phrase sounded advanced. The first time I reached 30 minutes, Marcus asked me to demonstrate. We were sitting in his apartment. He held up a fresh deck of cards. I froze time. Then I left. I walked 3 blocks to a bakery. The bakery was closed, but the front door was unlocked because an employee was cleaning. I did not steal anything. I left cash on the counter, took 2 pastries and walked back. Then I rearranged every card in the deck by suit and number while Marcus still held it. That took much longer than expected because getting individual cards out of his frozen grip was annoying. I placed 1 pastry on his head. I sat down. Time resumed. Marcus blinked. The deck in his hands was perfectly sorted. A pastry fell into his lap. I was already eating mine. He stared at me. Then he asked how long I had. I said 30 minutes. He became very quiet. Not scared. Just thoughtful. Then he asked whether I had remembered napkins. I had not. Power does not cure stupidity. We started setting limits. No stealing. No entering private homes unless there was an emergency, or Marcus had locked himself out again. No moving random people more than necessary. No changing documents. No opening someone's personal messages. No using the freeze to win money through gambling. No interfering with sports. No touching anyone's food as a prank because Marcus claimed fries were sacred. The rules sounded serious. Then Marcus added Rule 8. No placing live chickens in elevators. I asked why that needed to be a rule. He refused to explain. I became concerned about what he had been planning. The longer freeze made my stage act ridiculous. At 35 minutes, I could transform an entire stage between 2 claps. At 40, I could move from the stage to the balcony and back. At 45, I performed a trick where I vanished from inside a locked glass box and appeared in the audience wearing a completely different outfit while the box remained locked. The internet became furious. Magicians analyzed me. Engineers analyzed me. A physicist made a 40-minute video saying my trick was impossible. Marcus sent him tickets. The physicist attended our show. I made his notebook disappear from his lap and reappear inside the locked glass box. He stood through the entire intermission staring at the box. I felt slightly guilty. Then I saw him laughing. That was the point. I never wanted people terrified. I wanted them delighted that the world might be stranger than they thought. Sometimes I failed. One show in Chicago nearly exposed everything. The finale involved a motorcycle, not a moving motorcycle. I am reckless, not suicidal. The motorcycle started on stage. I covered it with a cloth. I froze time. The plan was to roll it behind a hidden wall and replace it with a tiny children's bicycle. I had 48 minutes. Easy, except the motorcycle's front wheel had been locked by a crew member who misunderstood the plan. I could not find the key. The clock in my head started ticking. I searched backstage. Nothing. I checked Marcus's pocket. Wrong keys. I checked the stage manager. More wrong keys. I found Dana frozen near the lighting controls. She had a key ring. Wrong again. 10 minutes gone. I could have abandoned the trick. Instead, I became emotionally committed to the bicycle. I returned to the motorcycle. I lifted the front end. It was heavy. Frozen time resistance made it worse. I dragged it. The kickstand caught the stage floor. I nearly fell. I dragged harder. The cloth slipped. I fixed it. I moved the motorcycle 6 feet. Then 10. Then 12. 20 minutes left. The hidden wall jammed. I kicked it. Nothing. I found the release latch. The motorcycle rolled through. I grabbed the children's bicycle. It had a pink basket and a horn shaped like a duck. Perfect. I placed it under the cloth. I had 5 minutes left. Then I saw the motorcycle tire marks across the stage. I cleaned them. 3 minutes. I ran back to position. 30 seconds. I resumed. Marcus yanked away the cloth. The tiny bicycle appeared. The crowd roared, and the duck horn honked by itself. I had bumped it during the freeze, but the compressed rubber had stayed deformed until time resumed. The bicycle squeaked. The audience laughed even harder. Marcus bowed like we had planned it. Backstage, Dana told us never to make her manage a motorcycle again. The next morning, she booked 2 more shows because ticket sales had doubled. Around this period, my power developed another weird property. I could extend my moving bubble through objects I was continuously touching. That sounds complicated. It meant if I held a rope, I could make the whole rope move. If I pushed a shopping cart, the whole cart came with me. If I touched a door, I could open it normally. If I grabbed one end of a long table, the table moved, but anything sitting on top did not, unless I deliberately spread my influence. Learning to spread that influence felt like learning to wiggle an invisible finger. At first I could include 1 or 2 objects, then several. This made complex pranks much easier. It also made elevators possible. Before, frozen elevators were useless because the machinery did not run. But if I touched the control panel and concentrated, I could sometimes bring parts of the elevator system into my moving bubble. The first test was in an empty hotel. Marcus stood outside because he said if I got trapped between floors, he wanted the legal right to laugh. I froze time, entered the elevator, touched the panel, pressed the button. Nothing. I concentrated harder. The lights flickered. The elevator groaned. Then it moved upward at about the speed of a tired turtle. I screamed with excitement. No one heard me because sound did not travel normally beyond my bubble. The elevator reached the next floor. The doors opened. I stepped out. Then I realized I had just moved a large electric machine while the rest of the building was frozen. I decided never to do that again without an excellent reason. 3 days later, I used it because I did not want to climb stairs. Time spoiled. Absolutely time spoiled. The true madness began when our tour reached a cluster of destinations with tightly packed time zones. Marcus had spent months designing what he called the Midnight Ladder. It looked like a conspiracy board. Flights, rail lines, private charters, ferries, driving routes. Every arrow chased a later midnight. By then, our show earned enough that the travel cost was painful but possible. Dana thought we were doing a documentary. We let her believe that. For 9 days, we chased midnight like it owed us money. We performed in the evenings. We traveled at night. We slept during the day. We collected local date rollovers. Some nights gave me 2 extra increments. Some gave 3. One absurd stretch gave 5. 5 new seconds in 1 real day. That may not sound exciting, but when a power grows permanently, every tiny increase matters. The Midnight Ladder became a yearly event. Then Marcus discovered charter aviation packages, then sponsorships. A travel company offered to pay part of our route if we filmed short magic clips in each destination. Suddenly the universe was funding its own loophole. I crossed 1 hour of frozen time much earlier than I should have. The day it happened, I was in a hotel room. No stage. No dramatic music. Just me, Marcus, a bowl of cereal, and a digital clock. The number ticked past midnight. I felt the click. I knew. 1 hour. I looked at Marcus. He knew from my face. He asked what I was going to do. I told him I wanted to test it. He said not to do anything stupid. I froze time. Marcus became a statue holding a spoon. The room fell silent. I stood there for a moment. 1 hour. I had never been alone for an hour without the rest of reality moving. I left the hotel room, walked down the hallway, took the stairs because I respected rule number 3 of my own elevator safety plan. which I had invented after ignoring rules 1 and 2. The lobby was frozen. A receptionist stood behind the desk. A man was walking through the revolving door. A suitcase leaned at an angle that gravity had not finished correcting. I went outside. Rain hung in the air. Thousands of droplets floated above the street. I stepped into them. They felt like beads until my movement disturbed them. Some clung to my jacket. Some shifted. Most remained suspended. Streetlights shone through them. Cars waited at an intersection. People stood under umbrellas. For once, I did not prank anyone. I walked. 10 minutes. 20. 30. The city belonged to silence. I could have entered anywhere. Moved anything. Read anything. But I mostly looked. At 40 minutes, I bought a snack from a convenience store by leaving exact cash on the counter. At 50, I started walking back. At 56, I realized I had gone farther than I thought. At 57, I began running. At 58, I regretted the snack. At 59, I reached the hotel stairs. I sprinted upward. The frozen air fought me. My legs burned. I reached the hallway. 30 seconds. My keycard would not work because the electronic lock was frozen. I had forgotten that. 20 seconds. I concentrated on the lock. Nothing. 15. I slapped the card reader. The light flickered red. 10. I spread my influence through the lock and tried again. Reen. The door clicked. 5. I launched myself inside. 3. I shut the door. 1. Time resumed. Marcus was still holding the spoon. I was lying face down on the carpet, soaking wet and breathing like I had been chased by wolves. He looked at me, then at the window, and back at me. He asked what happened. I told him I went for a walk. He said I was bad at walking. That 1-hour test revealed the next big problem. Range was unlimited. My stamina was not. Frozen time gave me more opportunity. But I still had a normal body. I got tired, hungry, thirsty, sore. If I wanted to use an hour efficiently, I needed transportation. Cars were difficult because engines depended on thousands of moving parts, fuel ignition, electronics, and fluid flow. I could bring a whole car into my bubble, but maintaining that influence exhausted me. Bicycles were perfect. Bicycles became the hidden kings of frozen time. No engine. Simple mechanics. Fast. Quiet. Easy to touch continuously. I bought an expensive folding bicycle and treated it like a sacred weapon. Marcus called it the time cycle. I refused that name for 2 weeks. And then I started calling it the time cycle too. With the bicycle, 1 hour became enormous. I could cross a city. I could visit multiple places. I could carry supplies in saddlebags. I could return before anyone noticed. My magician tricks became borderline unfair. At a major show in New York, I vanished from the stage, biked several blocks in frozen time, entered the lobby of another theater where Marcus had arranged permission, left a signed playing card on a famous actor's empty seat, biked back, and resumed. Then we revealed a live camera feed from the other venue. The actor found the card. The crowd went insane. Everyone assumed we had used a duplicate card and a planted assistant. We had. The assistant was me. That was the genius of hiding real magic inside fake magic. Every explanation sounded more reasonable than the truth. My ordinary career disappeared. I left the marketing job. Ms. Ortega wished me luck. Before I left, I moved the office plant one final time. I placed it on my own desk with a farewell note. Everyone laughed. I never told them. Dana became our full-time manager. Marcus became creative director, which was a dangerous title to give a man whose first official pitch was make a piano appear on a roof. We made a piano appear on a roof. Not a real piano. A lightweight stage prop? Still. The crane crew spent 4 hours preparing while I secretly knew I could have done the key part in frozen time. I began building a team of people who thought they were creating elaborate illusions. That made my life much easier. If I needed a costume placed in a specific room, there was a normal explanation. If I needed a bicycle waiting backstage, normal explanation. If I needed permission to access a building after hours, normal explanation. My supernatural ability was becoming an invisible engine inside a completely legal entertainment business. Then Marcus came to me with his greatest challenge. A wedding. Not my wedding. His sister's. Her name was Emily. The venue had booked the wrong date for half the decorations. The florist's truck was late. The cake had arrived damaged. The best man had lost one shoe. The ring bearer had eaten something blue and was now blue around the mouth. A storm was approaching. Emily looked ready to fight the sky. Marcus pulled me aside. He did not ask me to fix everything. He knew I had rules. He asked me to fix whatever could be fixed without anyone getting hurt. I checked the date. My freeze was available. I had 1 hour and 12 minutes. I looked at the reception hall, then at the incoming mess. I smiled. This was not a problem. This was a boss battle. I froze time. The wedding stopped. Rain paused outside the windows. The florist stood in the entrance carrying the first box. The cake leaned dangerously on its table. A waiter was dropping a tray of glasses. The best man was hopping on one foot. Marcus was frozen with both hands raised. I started with the glasses, caught the tray, set it down. 10 seconds. Cake next. I found support rods in the catering kit. Rebuilt the damaged lower layer as best I could. 8 minutes. Decorations. The florist's van was outside, packed with flowers. I opened it, carried arrangements in one by one. Moving that many objects through frozen air felt like doing squats inside a swimming pool. 20 minutes. The missing shoe. I searched. Under chairs. In bathrooms. Backstage. 30 minutes. No shoe. I found an emergency sewing kit. Not useful. I found a box of costume supplies from the photo booth. Inside were novelty slippers shaped like bears. Absolutely useful. I placed 2 bear slippers under the best man's chair. 35 minutes. The blue child. Nothing I could safely do there. I left him blue. Some problems belong to fate. The storm. Definitely not my department. I could not stop weather forever, but I could move the outdoor guest book, gifts, and loose decorations inside before the rain resumed. 50 minutes. I checked the room. Everything looked surprisingly good. Then I noticed the wedding arch. It was supposed to have flowers. Bare. I had 6 minutes. I ran to the florist van. No finished arch arrangement. I grabbed loose greenery and flowers. I had no floral design skill. I did it anyway. The result looked like a hedge had won a fight. 3 minutes. I rearranged it. Better. 1 minute. I returned to my position. Time resumed. The waiter blinked at the tray now resting safely on a table. The florist stepped forward and stared at the empty van. The cake decorator gasped at the repaired cake. The best man looked down, found bear slippers, and put them on because he had no better option. Rain slammed against the windows. The guests cheered because everything important was already inside. Emily looked around the transformed room, then at Marcus. Marcus looked at me. I pretended to be fascinated by a napkin. The wedding went perfectly. Almost. During the vows, the best man's bear slippers squeaked. Twice. Emily laughed so hard she had to restart. It became everyone's favorite moment. That night, Marcus told me this was the first time he had seen me use the power for something bigger than convenience or performance. I told him the vending machine had been important. He said it was not the same. I knew. The power was becoming huge. But strangely, the bigger it became, the more I wanted to use it for small things. Saving a tray, fixing a cake, finding a shoe, moving a plant. I had no interest in ruling the world. The world had meetings. I had escaped those. Why would I volunteer for more? Then the world gave me a new problem. Someone else moved during frozen time. It happened 3 nights after the wedding during a show rehearsal. The theater was empty except for our crew. Marcus and I were testing a new trick involving a giant wooden cabinet, a trapdoor, 2 fake swords, and a stuffed goose for reasons that made sense at the time. A lighting stand began to fall. I saw it tipping toward one of our dancers. I grabbed Marcus by the sleeve because he was blocking my path. Then I froze time. The stand stopped. The dancer stopped. Dust froze in the spotlight. I stepped forward. Marcus stepped with me. I stopped. Marcus stopped. I looked at him. He looked at me. Then he screamed. I screamed too, because I was used to frozen time being silent. Hearing another human voice inside it was horrifying. The scream sounded strange, not fully normal. Sound only traveled through the moving bubble around us, so his voice felt close and muffled, like we were shouting inside a blanket fort built by physics. Marcus grabbed my shoulders. I told him to stop grabbing me. He asked why he could move. I had no answer. Then we both remembered the lighting stand. We had nearly 1 hour and 15 minutes, so urgency was not exactly crushing. but I still moved it safely away. Marcus followed me, staring at frozen people like he had entered a museum after closing. He touched the dancer's hand. Nothing happened. She stayed frozen. He waved in front of her face. Nothing. He walked around a floating piece of dust. Then he smiled. I knew that smile. It was the same smile he had worn before the carrot stick incident. I told him no. He asked what I thought he was planning. I said I did not know. But no. He immediately began repositioning the stuffed goose. For the next hour, I learned that sharing stop time with Marcus was exactly as dangerous as I had feared. He put the goose in the director's chair. He moved 3 fake swords into a flower vase. He stacked paper cups on Dana's clipboard. He placed a sticky note on his own frozen coffee mug saying, "Do not trust this goose." I tried to study the mechanics. Marcus tried to improve the theater. We were doing different jobs. When time resumed, the lighting stand was safe. The dancer never knew she had nearly been hit. The theater crew did notice that a stuffed goose had somehow become management. Dana stared at the goose in her chair. Then, at Marcus. Marcus blamed theater spirits. Dana told him the theater spirits were going to lose health insurance. After rehearsal, we tested the new rule. Marcus touched my shoulder. I froze for 1 second. He could move. Next day, he stood beside me without touching. I froze. He became a statue. I moved his hand onto my shoulder while time was stopped. He stayed frozen. Important. It was not enough to touch me after the freeze started. He had to be touching me at the exact moment I activated the power. Next day, he touched my jacket sleeve. He moved. Next day, he held the strap of my backpack. He moved. Next day, he touched the time cycle while I touched the handlebars. He moved. The ability recognized connected contact. Then we tested a chain. Marcus held my shoulder. Dana held Marcus's shoulder. Dana did not know we were testing anything. I activated for 1 second. Both of them moved. Dana screamed. Marcus screamed because Dana screamed. I screamed because both of them screamed. Then time resumed. We were standing in the rehearsal hall. Dana looked at us. For a long moment, nobody spoke. She asked what had just happened. Marcus told her the truth before I could stop him. Dana laughed. We did not. She stopped laughing. I froze time again the next day with her permission. This time, I gave her 10 seconds. The world stopped. Dana looked around. She took 3 steps. She touched a floating paper. She watched it hang in the air. Then she turned to me with the calmest expression I had ever seen. She said we needed a meeting. Of course she did. I had revealed control over time and our manager scheduled a meeting. This was why I trusted her. Dana did not ask whether I could rob banks. She did not ask whether I could control governments. She asked whether our insurance covered injuries that happened during temporally abnormal rehearsal conditions. We checked. It did not. She added a rule. Nobody entered frozen time without consent except in emergencies. Marcus asked whether pranks counted as emergencies. Dana said no. Marcus looked disappointed. Then Dana did something even more frightening. She optimized us. She understood immediately that 1 hour of stop time was not just a magical trick. It was extra work capacity. She began scheduling what she called pause sessions. Before a major show, Marcus, Dana, and I would stand together with our hands on the same rolling equipment case. I froze time. Then all 3 of us could move. We would inspect props, reset costumes, walk the stage, review cues, and solve problems while the rest of the crew experienced nothing. We could turn a 30-second gap into an hour-long production meeting. It was incredible. It was also terrible. The first time Dana used my supernatural power to conduct inventory, I realized I had made a huge mistake. I had stopped the universe so my manager could count extension cables. Marcus looked at me with betrayal in his eyes. I apologized. We escaped after 20 minutes by pretending the frozen time bubble was becoming unstable. Dana did not believe us. She let us go because she had already finished the cable count. The ability to bring people inside created new possibilities for the stage. Marcus could move props while I worked elsewhere. Dana could coordinate. We could divide tasks. 1 daily freeze became 3 people's worth of extra time. Then I discovered the cost. The duration did not shrink, but my exhaustion increased. When I included 1 extra person, maintaining the moving bubble felt like carrying a backpack. 2 people felt like 2 backpacks. 5 people felt like running uphill while wearing furniture. I could do it. I simply did not want to. Marcus proposed that everyone lose weight. Dana threw a pencil at him. I froze instinctively. The pencil stopped 2 inches from his forehead. Marcus had not been touching me, so he froze too. I moved the pencil. Then I looked at him. It was extremely tempting to place it behind his ear. I did. Time resumed. Dana stared at her empty hand. Marcus found the pencil behind his ear. He said my power was getting predictable. The next day I put a spoon behind his ear instead. We became bolder with the Midnight Ladder. Our show had gone international. We could now justify flying almost anywhere. Dana knew about the power, so we no longer had to invent fake documentary reasons for our bizarre routes. She built schedules with military precision. Perform, travel west, catch midnight, sleep, fly, catch another midnight, perform again. Sometimes we gained a normal second, sometimes 3, sometimes, with careful routing, more. The growth accelerated. 1 hour became 90 minutes. 90 became 2 hours. 2 hours of frozen time is not a pause. It is a second life. Imagine getting home after a long day and wanting to relax. I could stop time. Take a shower. Read. Exercise. Clean my apartment. Prepare food. Play a video game? No. Electronics were still annoying. I could sometimes bring a whole device into my bubble, but internet connections did not work because the rest of the network was frozen. Offline games worked if I concentrated on the machine. That meant I could stop the world for 2 hours and still lose to a computer-controlled racing game. Humbling. Books became my favorite thing. I had never been a huge reader in school. Now I could read while no outside time passed. I started carrying a small library in my tour luggage. History, science, magic techniques, comedy writing, lock design, mechanical repair, cooking, languages. I was not suddenly brilliant. I simply had more hours than everyone else, and I still used many of them stupidly. One afternoon, I froze time because I wanted to know how many rubber ducks could fit inside Marcus's hotel bathroom. The answer was 412 if you ignored the bathtub drain. I know because I counted. We had bought the ducks for a stage routine. Marcus opened the bathroom door after time resumed. A yellow avalanche buried his feet. He stared at me. I told him the ducks had migrated. He threw one. I caught it. Normal reflexes. I was proud. At 2 hours and 20 minutes, I attempted my longest distance frozen trip. Our hotel was on one side of a city. A bakery I liked was on the other. I had the time cycle. I froze. The streets stopped. I rode. Cycling through frozen air was much harder at high speed because the air pushed back. I learned to create a narrow moving tunnel around myself and the bicycle. It felt like focusing on keeping a soap bubble open while sprinting. Cars were obstacles. Pedestrians were statues. Birds hung in the sky. Traffic lights remained frozen. I rode straight through intersections because nothing could move. It was the safest illegal cycling I had ever done. I reached the bakery. Closed. Locked. I had permission from the owner to enter after hours because we had filmed a magic clip there before. I used the spare key hidden in a coded lockbox. The lockbox was mechanical. Beautiful. I entered. The pastries had been baked before closing. I selected 2. Left money. Wrote a note. Then I rode back. The round trip took almost an hour in frozen time. I still had over an hour left, so I made a mistake. I decided to visit the aquarium. The aquarium was also closed. I did not have permission. I stood outside. I considered my rules. Then I saw a poster for a shark exhibit. I love sharks. I argued with myself for 6 minutes. Finally, I decided supernatural trespassing for shark appreciation was still trespassing. I went back to the hotel. Character growth. Marcus ate one of my pastries without asking. Character growth ended. The next day, I froze him with me and made him ride the time cycle's tiny rear luggage rack while I biked 20 minutes to buy another pastry. He complained the entire way. Frozen time sound made his voice even more annoying. I considered leaving him beside a fountain. I did not. That is friendship. When the freeze reached 3 hours, Dana made me get a medical checkup. Not because doctors understood supernatural time. They did not. She wanted baseline health information. I could spend 3 extra subjective hours awake each day if I used the full freeze. Would that age me faster? Would I need more food? More sleep? Was my body experiencing those hours normally? The answer appeared to be yes. If I spent 3 hours exercising during stop time, I got tired. If I stayed awake for 3 extra hours every day, I needed more sleep. This meant my power could not create free rest unless I actually slept inside frozen time. So I tried it. I froze the world, set a mechanical kitchen timer, lay down, closed my eyes, woke up 2 hours later. The timer had moved because I had deliberately brought it into my bubble. The world outside was still frozen. It was the greatest nap in history. I resumed time. From Marcus's perspective, I blinked and suddenly looked better. He called it weaponized napping. I began using short portions of my freeze to sleep before shows. Dana loved this because I stopped complaining. Marcus hated it because he said I had found a way to become even lazier. Then he asked me to include him. Soon we were both taking frozen time naps before rehearsals. Dana found us asleep backstage during a pause session. She could move because we had brought her in. She stood over us. I opened one eye. She said if we were going to abuse supernatural time for naps, we could at least use pillows. The next day there were pillows. Management. At 3.5 hours, we created the most absurd stage show of our career. The concept was called One Blink. The audience would watch a giant warehouse-like stage filled with objects. At the start, everything was white. White furniture, white walls, white costumes, white props. I would clap once. The lights would flicker for a fraction of a second. After the flicker, everything would be different. Not just one object. Everything. The walls would be covered in colorful banners. The furniture rearranged. A fake tree would appear. Marcus would be on a platform on the opposite side. I would be wearing a new costume. 200 balloons would hang from the ceiling. A giant inflatable duck would sit in the middle of the stage. Again, we had reasons. The audience was allowed to inspect the stage before the show. There were no hidden crews visible. The trick seemed impossible. Of course, the secret crew was us. Dana insisted we rehearse during normal time for safety. It took 22 people 40 minutes to complete the full transformation. During the actual show, I would bring only 5 trained crew members into frozen time. We had finally told a few essential people the truth. Not because we wanted to. Because one of them had caught Marcus apparently teleporting a sofa across a room during a rehearsal freeze when his hand accidentally touched mine. After that, secrecy became harder. We selected people we trusted. Our prop chief Lenny responded to the revelation by asking whether overtime laws applied inside stop time. Dana said yes. Lenny immediately became comfortable with the supernatural. The night of One Blink, 5 of us formed a contact chain behind the curtain. I activated. 3 hours and 40 minutes. The world stopped. We moved. At first it went perfectly. Banners up. Furniture swapped. Costumes changed. Platforms repositioned. Balloons released into nets because balloons themselves did not float normally until brought into our influence. Then the giant duck would not inflate. Air pumps were frozen. We could power one if I spread my bubble through the electrical system, but that drained focus. We tried a manual pump. The duck was enormous. After 20 minutes, it looked like a sad yellow bean. Marcus refused to abandon it. He pumped. Lenny pumped. I pumped. Dana, who had joined the pause specifically to supervise, stared at us like she regretted every career choice that had led here. 1 hour gone. The duck was half full. We switched tactics. I activated the electric blower inside the bubble. The blower roared quietly within our limited sound zone. The duck expanded. Too fast. Its head smashed into a lighting cable. The cable disconnected. A stage light shifted. Lenny caught it. Marcus kept inflating. The duck grew larger. Dana yelled to stop. Marcus could not hear her over the blower. I pulled the plug. The duck settled. It was perfect. 2 hours gone. Then a balloon net ripped. 180 balloons floated nowhere because frozen buoyancy behaved strangely until we touched them. They became a cloud of static yellow, blue, and red spheres hanging chest-high across the stage. We had to gather them manually. We chased frozen balloons for 40 minutes. At one point, I became buried inside them and lost Marcus. He was 3 feet away. I could hear him laughing. I hated him. Finally, we reset the net. 30 minutes left. Everyone ran to starting positions. Dana checked the stage. Lenny checked the platforms. Marcus climbed into place. I changed jackets. 10 minutes. I looked at the giant duck. Its head had slowly tilted sideways due to the part of it we had brought into motion. It looked drunk. 5 minutes. I climbed onto a ladder, straightened the duck, climbed down. 1 minute. I reached center stage. 10 seconds. Everyone touched their final props. I resumed time. The lighting flicker ended. The entire stage transformed. The audience did not cheer immediately. For 2 seconds, 5,000 people simply stared, and the building shook with noise. The giant duck leaned forward and honked. We had not installed a horn. Nobody knew why it honked. Not even us. The crowd loved it. Afterward, Lenny quit for exactly 6 minutes. Then he asked for a raise. He got one. The one blink video spread everywhere. People called it the greatest stage illusion of the decade. Some insisted the only possible explanation was that the video itself was fake. Others had attended live and argued with them. A television host asked me whether I would ever reveal the method. I said no. This was the easiest interview question of my life. Then the host asked whether I believed magic was real. I almost laughed. I told him I believed people were too quick to decide what was impossible. That answer sounded deep. I had prepared it during a 3-hour freeze earlier that day. Some habits never change. Fame created strange problems. People followed us. Fans waited outside hotels. Amateur magicians tried to sneak backstage. One man spent 3 shows measuring stage dimensions with a laser device. We never treated them badly. Most were just curious. But secrecy became more difficult, so we leaned into absurdity. We created fake methods, dozens of them. Hidden mirrors, duplicate costumes, decoy trapdoors, remote mechanisms, a fake tunnel under one stage that led nowhere. Marcus once built a fake control panel covered in buttons labeled fog, lights, and probably magic. We left it where a documentary crew would accidentally film it. The internet spent 2 months analyzing the fake panel. The button labeled probably magic became a meme. Our real secret sat beneath all that noise. Timmy stopped time. That was too ridiculous to be the popular explanation. Exactly where I wanted it. Then we met a man named Professor Pebble. That was not his real name. His real name was Dr. Peter Bell. But he wore a gray suit, round glasses, and somehow had the energy of a decorative rock, so Marcus called him Professor Pebble once, and the name became permanent in my mind. Dr. Bell was a physicist, not the same physicist whose notebook I had stolen for a trick. This one was worse. He did not attend our shows to debunk us. He attended because he had noticed something impossible in the videos. Dust. During one of our earliest transformations, a high-speed camera had captured dust particles. The furniture changed instantly. The dust did not blur. It appeared in different positions with tiny discontinuities. He had found similar discontinuities in fabric, smoke, falling confetti, and once in the motion of Marcus's hair. He requested a meeting. Dana wanted to refuse. Marcus wanted to wear a fake mustache. I wanted to know what he knew. So we met in a cafe. Dr. Bell brought printed graphs. He explained that our tricks seemed to contain missing physical time, not hidden movement. Missing time. My stomach tightened. Then he said his best theory was an exotic camera synchronization error. I nearly laughed into my drink. He was 1 inch from the truth and still blamed cameras. Marcus asked what the second best theory was. Dr. Bell said someone had found a way to create a localized region where physical processes occurred outside ordinary observation. My smile disappeared. Marcus stopped chewing. Dana kicked him under the table. Dr. Bell leaned closer. Then he asked whether we would let him examine our stage equipment. Dana said no, politely. He accepted that, too easily. Before leaving, he handed me a small mechanical stopwatch. He said it was a gift. No batteries, no radio signal, no network, just gears and a spring. He asked me to keep it nearby during my next impossible trick. I took it. That night I opened the stopwatch. Nothing strange. Normal mechanism. I wound it. Ticking. I placed it on my desk. The next day, during rehearsal, I froze time. The stopwatch stopped, of course. Then, about 7 minutes into the freeze, it ticked. Once, I stared at it. 7 minutes later, it ticked again. My skin prickled. It was the first thing I had ever seen move in frozen time without my permission. I did what any rational person would do after seeing an object move by itself inside my frozen universe. I threw a pillow at it. The pillow stopped in midair when it left my hand. The stopwatch remained on the desk. Tick. I moved closer. I picked it up. Now it ticked normally because I was touching it. I set it down. It froze again. 7 minutes later, one tick, not a full second of movement. Just a tiny mechanical jump. I resumed time immediately. Then I called Marcus. He arrived carrying a baseball bat. I asked why. He said I had told him a clock was moving by itself. I said it was a stopwatch. He said that was worse. We invited Dana. She brought Dr. Bell's business card. Unlike Marcus, she understood the obvious next step. The obvious next step was not hitting the stopwatch. We met Dr. Bell again. I did not reveal the power. Not yet. I told him the watch had behaved strangely during one of our tricks. He became so excited that he knocked over his coffee. I almost froze time to catch it. I stopped myself because that would have been a spectacularly bad moment to demonstrate suspicious reflexes. He explained that the stopwatch contained a custom balance assembly designed to resist abrupt changes in acceleration. That did not explain the ticks. He knew it. I knew it. Marcus did not know anything and ate 2 muffins. Dr. Bell asked exactly what I had observed. I said the hand seemed to jump. He asked after how long. I said I was not sure. He looked disappointed. I felt guilty. And then he gave me 3 more watches. Marcus finally stopped eating. On the way out, he whispered that we were being assigned homework by a physicist. I hated that he was right. The next freeze, I lined up all 4 watches. Time stopped. 3 hours, 58 minutes, and a handful of seconds. I waited. Around 7 minutes, the first watch ticked. Another followed 12 seconds later. The third took almost 9 minutes. The fourth did nothing for 20. I wrote everything down. By the end of the freeze, the watches had accumulated tiny amounts of motion even though they were not part of my moving bubble. Not enough to run. Enough to prove my freeze was not absolute. That should have scared me. Instead, Marcus turned it into a competition. He named the watches Speedy, Gerald, Princess Tickles, and Kevin. Kevin was the slow one. We began cheering whenever Kevin moved. The mystery became less frightening when one of the experimental devices was named Kevin. Dr. Bell kept giving us new objects. Pendulums, springs, a sealed music box, a mechanical toy bird. We tested them secretly during freezes. Most stayed perfectly still. A few twitched after long periods. The toy bird moved one wing after 40 minutes and nearly sent Marcus through a wall. Eventually, Dr. Bell concluded that something about certain oscillating mechanical systems allowed tiny leakage across whatever was happening during our stage tricks. He still did not know what the trick was, but he was very close. I made a decision. I told him, not with a speech. I asked him to hold the mechanical stopwatch and put one hand on my shoulder. Dana stood nearby. Marcus stood behind a thick acrylic shield for no reason. I activated the freeze. The laboratory stopped. Dr. Bell could move. He looked around. He looked at the silent fluorescent lights. He looked at the dust. He looked at the frozen second hand on the wall clock. Then he looked at his stopwatch, which continued ticking normally in his hand. He sat down very slowly. For 10 full minutes, he said nothing. Marcus finally stepped out from behind the shield and waved. Dr. Bell looked at him, then at me. Then he asked whether we could stay like this for a while. I said we had almost 4 hours. He laughed once. Not because it was funny, because his brain had run out of normal responses. We spent the next 3 hours explaining everything. Day 1, 1 second, daily growth, time zone loopholes, moving bubble, contact chains, air resistance, heat problems, electronics, sleep, bicycles, rubber ducks. I did not explain the rubber ducks in detail. Some mystery should remain. Dr. Bell filled 3 notebooks. At the end, he asked the question I had been avoiding for years. What caused it? I shrugged. No glowing meteor. No mysterious stranger. No accident. No ancient bloodline. I had wanted an extra second, and I got one. Then another. Then another. He hated that answer. Scientists love causes. My cause was breakfast. When time resumed, Dr. Bell had aged 3 subjective hours while his laboratory clock had not advanced. He stared at the clock. Then he said he needed a sandwich. That was how Professor Pebble joined the team. He never liked the nickname. Marcus never stopped using it. Dr. Bell's first contribution was proving that the frozen air resistance was partly under my control. I had assumed I simply learned to move better over time. He thought I was unconsciously widening and shaping my moving bubble. We tested it. If I imagined the air directly ahead of me joining my bubble before I stepped into it, movement became easier. If I imagined a narrow tunnel around my body, I could run faster. If I extended the bubble around the time cycle's front wheel, I could ride much faster without feeling like I was pedaling through soup. This was huge. I had spent years fighting invisible pudding because nobody had told me to imagine a hole in it. Dr. Bell also designed simple mechanical devices that worked reliably inside my bubble. Spring-driven timers, hand-crank lights, a compact, compressed air motor. A ridiculous three-wheeled vehicle that looked like a shopping cart had married a bicycle. Marcus named it the Pause Buggy. I refused. Dana called it the Pause Buggy once. The name became permanent. The Pause Buggy could move quickly in frozen time without requiring an engine full of difficult combustion processes. Compressed air powered a piston system. Mechanical steering. No computer. No radio. No network. It was ugly. It was beautiful. It had a basket. Marcus installed a bell. Dr. Bell removed the bell. Marcus installed 2 bells. I froze time and moved one onto Dr. Bell's desk. He stopped removing bells. With the Pause Buggy, a 4-hour freeze became a playground. We could cross entire cities. We could move bulky props. We could carry food and water. We could transport 2 people if they were willing to sit in deeply undignified seats. Naturally, the first real field test was at a giant furniture store. We had permission after hours because the company sponsored a video. The challenge was to enter an empty display bedroom in one section and appear in a different display bedroom almost a kilometer of indoor walking away before a high-speed camera registered movement. Normal production planned hidden cuts. We did it for real. I froze time. Marcus and I climbed into the Pause Buggy. Dana refused. Dr. Bell came because he wanted measurements. We drove through frozen showrooms, sofas, tables, fake kitchens, lamps, rows of beds. It felt like exploring a civilization where everyone had disappeared and left only throw pillows. Marcus rang the bell at every intersection. Dr. Bell kept telling him sound did not carry far enough for anyone to hear. Marcus said the bell was for morale. We reached the destination in 11 minutes. Too easy. So Marcus proposed we improve the video. We moved every decorative pillow in the final bedroom 2 inches to the left. I asked why. He said continuity errors made art stronger. I stopped asking. Time resumed. The finished clip looked impossible. Nobody noticed the pillows. Marcus was devastated. The next challenge came from a rival magician named Victor Vale. That was his stage name. His real name was Barry. This mattered because Victor Vale sounded like a man who escaped volcanoes. Barry sounded like a man who knew a good tax accountant. Barry was talented. Very talented. He built clever mechanical illusions and had spent years annoyed that our physically impossible tricks were stealing attention. He challenged me publicly to an escape contest. 2 transparent cages, 2 sets of locks, no assistance, no curtains. First person out won. I had nothing against him. But Marcus read the challenge online and immediately accepted on my behalf. I threatened to replace all his socks with slightly damp socks. He said it was worth it. The contest became a charity event. That made backing out difficult. Barry designed the cages himself. Steel frame, clear panels, multiple padlocks, hands cuffed, keys placed in sealed boxes outside the cages. It was theatrical. It was safe. There were emergency releases. The audience packed the venue. Dr. Bell inspected everything. Dana made me promise not to humiliate Barry. I agreed. Then I saw Barry's entrance. Smoke. Flames. Black coat. Dramatic music. He pointed at me like we had been enemies in another lifetime. I decided mild humiliation was acceptable. We entered the cages. Cuffs on. Doors locked. Timer started. Barry immediately began working on a hidden pick he had concealed in his sleeve. I waited 3 seconds. Then I froze time. 4 hours and 19 minutes. I looked at my cuffs. I could have broken the trick instantly, but that would be suspicious. So I spent the first 10 minutes inspecting Barry's cage. Not touching him. Not interfering. I wanted to understand his method. His hidden pick was clever. His cuff had a modified mechanism. The bottom padlock was real, but the top 2 had spring-loaded bypasses hidden in the frame. He would escape in about 90 seconds. Good. I returned to my cage. I could simply retrieve the key outside. Too easy. Instead, I picked the cuffs manually using a tiny shim hidden under my tongue. I had learned real escape skills. Then I worked the locks. 1, 2, 3. It took me 11 minutes in frozen time. I opened the cage. Then I had an idea. A terrible idea. There was a snack table backstage. I walked over, found a small sandwich, returned, sat cross-legged outside my cage, put the sandwich on a napkin. Then I resumed time. 3 seconds had passed on the public timer. The audience made a noise like a car engine failing. Barry was still inside his cage, halfway through reaching for his hidden pick. He looked up. I was sitting outside, eating a sandwich. He froze. Not because of my power. Emotionally, I gave him a thumbs up. Barry forgot his method. For 10 seconds, he simply stared. Then professional pride returned. He escaped in 2 minutes and 6 seconds. The crowd cheered him too. Afterward, he stormed backstage. I expected anger. Instead, he demanded to know where I had hidden the sandwich. I told him trade secret. He respected that answer. We became friends. Eventually, after 3 months of him trying to reverse engineer the sandwich, the contest generated more attention, more shows, more travel, more midnights. My maximum freeze climbed past 5 hours. At 5 hours, Dana prohibited me from using the full duration casually. Not because it was dangerous to the world, because I kept destroying my sleep schedule. If I stopped time at noon, spent 5 hours doing things, resumed at noon, then continued my normal day, I had lived a 29-hour day. Do that repeatedly and your body begins filing complaints. So I treated the freeze like a budget. Sometimes 10 minutes. Sometimes 30. Rarely the whole thing. The full 5 hours became reserved for difficult projects, travel, or emergencies, and pranks of historic importance. The greatest prank of historic importance happened on Marcus's birthday. He had spent years helping me. He had taken ridiculous flights, carried props, kept secrets, been trapped under rubber ducks. He deserved something special. So I spent 3 weeks planning with Dana, Dr. Bell, Emily, Lenny, and Barry. Marcus believed we were performing a private show at a large convention center. He arrived early. The main hall looked normal. Tables, chairs, stage, birthday cake near the back. 200 invited friends, crew members, performers, and fans. I told him we had one surprise. He became suspicious. He should have. I waited until he stood center stage. Then I activated the freeze with my team holding a contact rope behind the curtain. 5 hours and 33 minutes. The world stopped. Marcus froze because he was not touching the chain. We moved. For 5 hours, we rebuilt the entire hall around him. Tables vanished behind curtains. Chairs rearranged into a giant spiral. Banners covered the walls. Thousands of paper stars hung from overhead nets. A throne made from inflatable pool toys appeared behind Marcus. A costume team changed every consenting participant we had brought into the freeze into matching wizard robes. Barry built a fake stone arch. Lenny rolled out fog machines but kept them off until time resumed. Emily placed the cake on the throne. Dr. Bell measured air pressure because he was Dr. Bell. Dana ran the operation like a general invading a craft store. I saved the final touch for myself. Marcus wore a plain black jacket. I carefully removed it. I replaced it with a sparkling purple cape covered in tiny rubber ducks. He remained frozen the entire time. Then everyone took position. I resumed. To Marcus, nothing had happened. 1 instant. Normal convention hall. Next instant, 200 people in wizard robes stood in a spiral around him. The walls were covered in stars. A giant arch framed the stage. Fog rolled across the floor. He wore a duck cape. Behind him sat a pool toy throne and a cake. Everyone shouted happy birthday. Marcus looked down at the cape, then around the hall, then at me. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. For once, I had defeated him. Then one of the tiny rubber ducks on his cape squeaked. He started laughing. He laughed so hard he had to sit on the inflatable throne. The throne collapsed. The cake survived. Barely. It was perfect. That night, after everyone left, Marcus and I sat on the empty stage. He asked whether I ever got tired of it. The power, the secret, the extra hours. I thought about that. I had lived thousands of minutes nobody else had experienced. Hours of silence, private walks through frozen rain, books read between words, naps between blinks, entire stage sets built between camera frames. I had become older in tiny invisible pieces. Not dramatically older, but enough that the idea bothered me. Still, I did not regret it. I told Marcus the truth. I only got tired when I treated the power like a shortcut. When I treated it like a place. I loved it. Frozen time was a place, a silent second world layered over the normal one. And now that world lasted more than 5 hours. Marcus looked at the empty hall. Then he asked the question that changed everything. How far could we go during one freeze? Not across a city, across a country. I laughed. Then Dr. Bell, who had apparently been standing behind us for 30 seconds, said he had been working on that. Nobody heard him approach. Professor Pebble had become stealthy. I did not like it. He showed us plans. Not for a car. Not for an airplane. For a rail vehicle. A tiny maintenance cart designed to run on existing tracks using a mechanical drive system he believed I could pull into my bubble efficiently. It was compact. Fast. Ugly. Marcus loved it immediately. Dana hated it before she saw it. The plan was absolutely unreasonable, which meant we were probably going to do it. The rail experiment began at 2 o'clock in the morning on a privately rented maintenance spur. Dana had spent 2 months obtaining permissions. Dr. Bell had spent 4 months building the cart. Marcus had spent 6 hours painting a lightning bolt on the side. I contributed by bringing snacks. Everyone has a role. The vehicle sat on the rails like a metal picnic table with wheels. 2 seats in front. 2 tiny seats in back, mechanical brakes, a compressed air drive assisted by a pedal system, storage compartment, hand crank headlamp, emergency tools, and, despite Dr. Bell's objections, 3 bells. Marcus had named it the Pause Express. Dana pointed out that nothing about it was express. Marcus added another lightning bolt. We had permission to use a 30-kilometer test section that was closed for overnight work. Normal safety crews monitored both ends. The actual test would happen during my freeze, so from their perspective we planned to move only a short distance before returning. Dr. Bell, Marcus, and I climbed aboard. All 3 of us touched the same metal bar. I stopped time. 5 hours and 48 minutes. The night became silent. A nearby worker froze with a flashlight pointed at the track. The stars stopped. Everything stopped. Dr. Bell checked instruments. Marcus rang all 3 bells. I regretted bringing him. We started. The Pause Express rolled forward. Slow at first, then faster. The compressed air drive clicked and pushed. I widened my moving bubble around the vehicle. Frozen air resistance dropped. The wheels hummed inside our little island of moving sound. 10 kilometers per hour. 20. 30. Dr. Bell smiled. 40. Marcus shouted that we had broken the time speed limit. There was no time speed limit. He said there should be. At 50 kilometers per hour, the cart began shaking. We slowed. Dr. Bell adjusted something beneath the seat. I asked whether he had tested that part. He said not at this speed. I told him that was a disturbing answer from a scientist. We continued. For the first time, I traveled far through stop time without exhausting myself. The railway cut through industrial areas, suburbs, and open countryside. Cars froze at crossings. Birds hung above fields. A freight train sat motionless on a distant parallel track. We rolled past it. Its engineer stared forward, unaware that 3 idiots on a homemade cart were passing outside time. We reached the end of the authorized section in 40 minutes. We stopped. Marcus wanted to continue. Dana had made him sign a document promising he would not. He argued the document technically belonged to moving time. Dr. Bell told him contracts did not freeze morally. We turned around. Then the Pause Express broke. Not dramatically. One chain fell off. That was all. Unfortunately, it fell into the wheel assembly and jammed beneath a guard plate. We stopped 12 kilometers from the starting point. 4 hours left. No problem. Dr. Bell opened the tool compartment. Wrong wrench. He checked again. Wrong wrench. Marcus checked. Still wrong wrench, because checking more aggressively does not change tool sizes. The correct wrench was back at the maintenance shed. 12 kilometers away. I looked at the time cycle strapped to the rear rack. Marcus looked at me. Dr. Bell looked at me. I told Marcus he was not coming. He complained. I took the bicycle and rode. The narrow air tunnel made movement easier, but I still had to pedal. The rail route was direct. I reached the shed. The door was locked. Mechanical lock. Easy. I had permission. I opened it, found the wrench, found 2 better wrenches, found a chain tool, found a packet of cookies that did not belong to me. I left the cookies. Character growth continued. Then I rode back. 2 hours left. Dr. Bell repaired the chain. Marcus had spent the waiting time arranging gravel into a smiley face beside the tracks. We restarted. 40 minutes remained when we reached the beginning. We parked the cart exactly where it had started. Wiped the wheels, returned every tool, removed the time cycle, took our seats. I resumed time. To the safety crew, we had not moved. One worker blinked at the rails. He said he thought he heard a bell. Marcus became unbearably proud. The experiment proved we could use stop time for serious distance. That opened a new category of performance. Not teleportation across a stage, apparent teleportation across regions. We did not fake impossible distances often because logistics were enormous, but once was enough to create a legend. The event involved 2 theaters connected by rail and road, roughly 100 kilometers apart. At Theater 1, I stepped inside a clear cabinet on live television. At Theater 2, a second clear cabinet waited on another stage with another audience. Both broadcasts ran at the same time. The host counted down. The cabinet at Theater 1 was covered for 1 second. I froze time. 5 hours and 59 minutes. The moment I activated, a trained team touched the cabinet frame with me. They opened it. I changed into cycling clothes, ran outside, mounted the time cycle, rode to our hidden rail access point. Marcus and Dr. Bell waited there inside the moving chain because they had touched a metal strip connected to the cabinet at activation. It was the most ridiculous contact chain we had ever constructed. We boarded the Pause Express. Rail permission had been arranged. We drove. An hour, then 2. The route curved. The cart rattled. We stopped once to adjust pressure. 3 hours. We reached the far access point. I took the bicycle. Rode through frozen streets, reached Theater 2, entered through a service door, changed back into my stage clothes, climbed inside the second cabinet. 4 hours and 47 minutes had passed in my private world. I was exhausted, sweaty, hungry. I had 90 minutes left, so I took a shower in the theater dressing room. A real shower required bringing the plumbing and water flow into my bubble, which Dr. Bell had helped me practice. It was inefficient but possible. I showered, dried off, fixed my hair, ate a sandwich, brushed my teeth, read 20 pages of a mystery novel. Then I entered the cabinet again. 30 seconds left. I stood perfectly still, resumed. At Theater 1, the cloth dropped over an empty cabinet. At Theater 2, a cloth lifted from the second cabinet at what appeared to be the same instant. I stepped out. 2 live audiences exploded. The host at Theater 1 shouted that it was impossible. The host at Theater 2 grabbed my shoulders to make sure I was real. The internet collapsed into war. Some people argued pre-recorded video. Others argued twins. Others argued tunnel. One theory claimed we had built an underground magnetic cannon that launched me between cities in 1 second. Marcus said we should build fake plans for the cannon. Dana said absolutely not. We built one fake diagram. It leaked online somehow. Dana blamed Marcus. Marcus blamed Professor Pebble. Dr. Bell did not know enough about social media to defend himself. The magnetic cannon theory survived for 2 years. Meanwhile, I kept growing. 6 hours. 6.5. 7. The midnight ladder became more efficient as our resources improved. We did not chase every possible midnight. That would have destroyed us. But we caught enough extras that my timeline pulled farther away from the ordinary calendar. I stopped counting my growth by age. I counted by duration. 7 hours meant I could create a full working day inside 1 instant. That fact changed my life more than fame did. I built a workshop, not a secret underground bunker. I considered that too expensive. My workshop was a rented warehouse with very good locks and terrible coffee. One section held stage props. One held mechanical experiments. One had bookshelves. One had exercise equipment. One had a small kitchen. One had a couch. One contained approximately 900 rubber ducks because Marcus kept ordering them in bulk. I used the warehouse during frozen time. Sometimes I would arrive at noon, freeze, and spend 4 hours learning something. Woodworking, drawing, mechanical repair, card manipulation, cooking techniques that did not require heat until later. I learned conversational phrases in several languages. I practiced speeches. I designed stage routines. I exercised. I napped. Then I resumed time and went to lunch. To everyone else, I seemed impossibly productive. The truth was I had discovered a legal way to have 2 Tuesdays. The downside was subjective age. Dr. Bell calculated that if I used an average of 4 frozen hours per day, I was living roughly 60 extra days per year. More if I used the full duration. A number made me reduce casual use. I did not want to become 50 while Marcus was 45 because I spent my youth reorganizing props outside time. So I got selective. I also got efficient. Perfect responses no longer needed 7 hours. Usually 10 minutes was enough. Reading a contract might take 20. Fixing a stage issue might take 30. I saved the long freezes for experiences worth having. Once, I stopped time at a beach before sunrise and spent 3 hours walking along perfectly still waves. The ocean was bizarre. The surface froze into shapes that looked solid, but if I pushed into the water, my bubble activated the portion around me. I could move through it. Then when I stepped away, the disturbed water froze again. I made temporary tunnels in the edge of waves. I built a terrible little wall of suspended droplets. When time resumed, the wall collapsed and soaked my shoes. Worth it. Another time, I froze during a snowstorm. Snowflakes hung everywhere. I rode the pause buggy through them. Marcus came with me. We spent 2 hours building a line of snowballs in midair by touching and packing snow, then leaving each ball suspended where we released it. Dozens of snowballs floated above an empty park. We resumed. Every ball fell at once. None hit anyone. We had planned carefully. It looked like the sky had briefly decided to make dumplings. A child nearby shouted with joy. Marcus bowed even though nobody was looking. We also discovered animals could enter the moving bubble. This happened because of a cat named Sir Crunch. I did not name him. He arrived with that name. Sir Crunch belonged to Lenny and occasionally came to the warehouse because Lenny insisted the cat had separation anxiety. Sir Crunch did not have separation anxiety. Sir Crunch had ambition. He was an orange cat with one torn ear, a wide body, and the eyes of a landlord. One afternoon, I prepared to freeze time for a 3-hour prop session. Dana held the contact rail. Lenny held it. Marcus held it. Dr. Bell held it. I activated. Everyone moved. Then something attacked my ankle. I screamed. Sir Crunch was moving. At the exact moment I froze, he had been rubbing against my shoe. The contact had brought him in. This was a disaster. People could understand rules. Sir Crunch understood opportunities. He sprinted. A frozen world is paradise for a cat. No humans can stop you. No doors move unless your special human opens them. Every object remains exactly where you knock it until time resumes. Sir Crunch jumped onto a table. He slapped a pencil. The pencil moved while his paw touched it, then froze in midair. His eyes widened. He slapped it again. The pencil moved. He had discovered physics. We had created a scientist. Then he began experimenting. Cup. Slap. Paper. Slap. Rubber duck. Slap. Another rubber duck. Slap. He moved down the table, launching objects into suspended positions. Lenny chased him. Marcus laughed too hard to help. Dr. Bell observed. Dana said my name in the tone she usually reserved for invoices. I tried to catch Sir Crunch. He escaped under a shelf. I crawled after him. He ran out the other side. He leaped onto the pause buggy. Marcus made the mistake of ringing the bell. Sir Crunch attacked the bell. Then he hit the accelerator lever. The buggy jerked forward. Nobody was steering. It rolled across the warehouse, straight toward a wall of boxed props. I sprinted, jumped onto the rear rack, reached the brake, stopped 6 inches from the boxes. Sir Crunch sat in the front seat, proud. We stared at him. He meowed. Frozen time sound carried because he was part of the bubble. The meow felt like a declaration of victory. We ended the freeze early. The instant normal time resumed. Every object Sir Crunch had batted completed its interrupted movement. Pencils fell. Paper fluttered. Rubber ducks bounced. A cup dropped onto a cushion. Nothing broke. Sir Crunch immediately became normal again. He looked around as if nothing had happened. Lenny picked him up. Marcus demanded we promote him. Dana banned cats from pause sessions. Sir Crunch ignored the ban 3 weeks later by hiding inside my equipment bag. We froze. He climbed out. Dana closed her eyes. The cat had beaten management. After that, he became an occasional participant. We even trained him to ride in a little basket on the pause buggy. This was not useful. It was excellent. The bigger my power grew, the stranger my life became. But the world outside remained ordinary. That was the funniest part. People still complained about traffic. Coffee still spilled. Printers still jammed. Airlines still lost luggage. My power could freeze the planet for 7 hours, and I still spent 15 minutes one morning looking for my keys. I had left them in the refrigerator. No supernatural explanation. Just Timmy. Then I was invited onto a comedy roast. This seemed harmless. It was not. The comedians had prepared. They made fun of my stage clothes, my hair, my weird travel schedule, my old bowling alley video, the fact that Marcus had once worn a duck cape in public. I laughed. Then one comedian named Sasha leaned toward me and delivered a joke so perfectly targeted that my brain became empty. The audience howled. I had no response. For the first time in years, I felt 17 again. Cornered. Slow. Unprepared. I froze time. 7 hours and 26 minutes. The comedy club stopped. Sasha froze with a smile. The audience froze mid-laugh. I stood up. I walked backstage. Made tea. Sat at a table. Opened a notebook. Then I spent the next hour writing comeback ideas. Most were terrible. I wrote 43. I ranked them. I rejected all 43. I walked around the club. Looked at Sasha. Went back. Wrote 12 more. One was decent. I practiced it. Too mean. I did not want mean. Another hour. I ate a sandwich. I read part of a book on joke structure. I wrote 17 more. Finally, after nearly 3 subjective hours, I found one simple response that made me laugh. I returned to my chair. Then I realized I had used 3 hours of supernatural time to prepare one sentence. That was pathetic. I almost resumed without answering. Then I remembered the audience was still frozen in the middle of laughing at me. Petty Timmy won. I resumed. The laugh finished. I delivered my comeback instantly. The room exploded again. Sasha slapped the table. After the show, she told me I was terrifyingly fast. I thanked her. Nobody needed to know that my wit had a 3-hour loading screen. Marcus did know. He asked why I had taken so long. I told him comedy was difficult. He said I could have just called Sasha's shoes weird. This was why he was not allowed to write my interviews. Soon after that, a streaming company invited us to participate in a locked room competition series. Dana said no. Marcus said yes. Barry said yes louder. I said I would consider it. The concept involved teams trapped in elaborate themed rooms with puzzles. No danger. No actual imprisonment. Just escape room television. The producers wanted magicians because they thought we would be entertaining. They had no idea. I promised myself not to cheat with the freeze unless something genuinely went wrong. For the first 2 rooms, I did not. We solved riddles, found hidden keys, decoded patterns. Barry was excellent. Marcus was chaotic but occasionally brilliant. I was good at noticing mechanisms because years of frozen time exploration had trained me to study environments quickly. Then room 3 happened. The theme was Professor Doom's impossible office. I disliked the name immediately. We entered. The door locked. A timer started at 60 minutes. The room contained books, a desk, a fake fireplace, file cabinets, paintings, and a giant globe. We solved the first puzzle. Then the second. At minute 20, we opened a cabinet that was supposed to reveal a key. No key. Production mistake. We searched. Nothing. The hidden slot had jammed. The crew watching on cameras did not realize because the key was supposed to fall silently. We wasted 15 minutes. Barry became suspicious. Marcus became hungry. I became annoyed. At minute 38, I froze time. 7 hours and 39 minutes. I could have walked through the staff door and found the answer. That would be cheating. Instead, I inspected the cabinet. The release mechanism had caught on a bent metal tab. I fixed the tab. The key dropped into my hand while I was touching it. I put it back into the chute above the release point. Then I returned to position. I resumed. The key fell. Marcus shouted like he had personally defeated the cabinet. We continued. At minute 59, we escaped. The episode became famous because viewers thought our near loss was dramatic. Nobody knew the real enemy had been poor cabinet maintenance. After filming, I repaired 2 other sticky mechanisms for the production crew. I did not charge them. I did steal a cookie from craft services. I left money. Old habits. My freeze passed 8 hours during the next midnight ladder. 8 hours. A full workday. The headline people used for our magic act was that Timmy could do the impossible in 1 blink. They had no idea how literal that had become. I could freeze the world at breakfast, live an entire private day, then resume before my coffee finished pouring. And I was about to use all 8 hours for the stupidest project we had ever attempted. The project began with a duck. Of course it did. A city arts festival had invited us to create a giant public illusion in the central plaza. The plaza covered several blocks and connected to a park, an old train station, a fountain, and a pedestrian bridge. Our official challenge was simple to explain and horrible to execute. At noon, the plaza would be almost empty. A giant screen would show a live overhead view. I would stand on a small platform. A bell would ring twice. Between the first ring and the second, which were less than 1 second apart, the entire plaza would transform. 10,000 yellow umbrellas would appear. 500 paper lanterns would hang from prepared cables. Hundreds of lightweight cardboard buildings would create a tiny fantasy city. Performers would appear in costume. A giant inflatable dragon would sit across the fountain. And because Marcus had negotiated with the festival without supervision, 800 rubber ducks would somehow occupy the pedestrian bridge. Dana asked him why. He said local culture. It was not local culture. The city approved everything anyway because the event raised money for arts programs. We had permits, safety plans, engineers, medical staff, weather monitoring, a giant crew, and 8 hours of stop time. For weeks we prepared. Everything was staged in hidden storage areas around the plaza. The umbrellas were bundled on rolling racks. The cardboard buildings folded flat. The lantern cables were already installed overhead. The dragon had electric blowers, but Dr. Bell had designed a compressed air backup we could activate inside my moving bubble. The ducks were in crates. So many crates. Marcus guarded them like treasure. The plan required 12 people inside the freeze. That was more than I had ever carried comfortably. But by then I had grown much better at expanding my bubble. We would activate through a conductive contact rail hidden under the stage. Everyone on the team would touch it. I would freeze time. 8 hours and 11 minutes. Then we would work. Our estimate was 6 hours. 2 hours of safety margin. Dana liked safety margin. I liked snacks. We packed both. At 11:57 that morning, everything looked perfect. At 11:58, the first problem arrived. One storage truck was missing. Not late. Missing. It contained 100 folded buildings and most of the lanterns. Dana called the driver. Wrong unloading address. The truck was 12 kilometers away. I looked at the clock. No time to retrieve it before noon. We had alternatives. We could reduce the display. Nobody would know. Dana recommended that. Reasonable. Professional. Safe. Then Marcus discovered a second problem. The duck crates had been loaded onto the missing truck, too. He looked at me as if someone had kidnapped his family. I told him the umbrellas mattered more. He said I had changed. At 11:59, the dragon's backup pressure valve began leaking. Dr. Bell crouched beside it. Repairable. Maybe. The performers moved into position. The crowd filled viewing areas beyond the safety barriers. Cameras rolled. The festival host raised the bell striker. Dana looked at me. We could cancel. We could simplify. We could do the responsible thing. I looked at Marcus. He looked toward the empty bridge where 800 ducks were supposed to appear. I made the worst possible decision. I told Dana we were doing the full version. She stared at me. Then she smiled. That was how I knew I had finally corrupted management. The first bell rang. I stopped time. 8 hours and 11 minutes began. The plaza fell silent. The striker hovered a few centimeters from the second bell. The crowd froze. Flags stopped in the wind. A soap bubble from a child near the barrier hung above the pavement. 12 members of our team remained moving. So did Sir Crunch. I looked down. The orange criminal was sitting beside my shoe. I had no idea how he got there. Lenny looked guilty. Dana looked at Lenny. Lenny looked away. No time. Technically, we had lots of time. Emotionally, No time. Dana split the crew. Umbrellas first, lantern infrastructure second, dragon repair third. I took the missing truck problem. Marcus demanded to come because of the ducks. I told him he was needed in the plaza. He told me the ducks were in the truck. I lost the argument. We took the pause buggy. Dr. Bell joined us because the truck also contained a mechanical cable tensioner he needed. Sir Crunch climbed into the basket. Dana shouted after us that if the cat became project manager, she was resigning. We drove through the frozen city. 8 hours sounds endless. It is not when your to-do list includes recovering a truck, unloading hundreds of props, crossing 12 kilometers and constructing a fake city before a bell travels 6 inches. The pause buggy moved fast. Not car fast. Fast enough. We cut through empty intersections. Traffic sat frozen. A bus waited at a stop. A cyclist balanced motionless. A pigeon hovered above a statue with bad intentions. Marcus rang the bell. I told him to focus. He said bells were focus. 20 minutes later, we reached the address. The missing truck sat behind a convention hall. Locked. We had keys. Good. We opened the cargo door. Bad. The lantern crates were at the front. The cardboard buildings were behind them. The duck crates were behind everything. Marcus looked personally betrayed by logistics. We unloaded. The pause buggy could not carry it all. Dr. Bell inspected the truck. He said we might be able to bring the truck into my moving bubble. I had moved cars before in short tests. Never 12 kilometers. The truck was simple enough mechanically, but the engine was not. We could tow it. With what? The pause buggy looked at the truck. The truck looked at the pause buggy. The laws of sensible engineering began laughing. We found a small electric warehouse tug inside the convention loading area. Electronics were difficult, but not impossible if I spread my bubble through the system. We had permission to access the equipment because the festival had rented the hall. Donna had planned more contingencies than I realized. We connected the tug to the truck. I brought the tug into motion. It crawled. Very slowly. Marcus walked beside it. He said we could push faster. We tried. We could not. 1 hour gone. At this speed, we would return next Thursday. New plan. Unload the essential crates onto flatbed carts. Tow the carts with the pause buggy. Leave the cardboard buildings. Keep lanterns. Keep ducks. I questioned the priority order. Marcus refused to debate. We built a train of carts. The pause buggy became a tiny locomotive. 4 carts behind us. Lanterns. Tools. Ducks. More ducks. A completely irresponsible number of ducks. We started back. The first kilometer went well. Then one cartwheel squeaked. Frozen time sound was limited to our bubble, which meant the squeak followed us like a tiny ghost. Squeak. 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 Dr. Bell tried oil. Oil moved strangely. Squeak. Marcus suggested music. No internet. Squeak. I considered abandoning the cart. It contained ducks. Marcus threatened mutiny. Squeak. We continued. Halfway back, Sir Crunch leaped from the basket onto a duck crate. The crate lid was not fully secured. The cat landed. The lid opened. Rubber ducks spilled onto the road. Because they were connected through the moving cart when the crate shifted, dozens gained motion. Then they separated. They froze in midair around us. A cloud of yellow ducks hung across the street. I stopped the buggy. Marcus stared. Dr. Bell stared. Sir Crunch sat on the open crate. I informed the cat that he had created an operational setback. He licked his paw. We spent 15 minutes collecting ducks. Marcus counted them. 1 missing. He refused to leave. I asked if he was serious. He was. We searched under the cart, under the buggy, near the curb. Dr. Bell found it balanced on the roof of the buggy. Marcus celebrated. I questioned every choice that had led to my life. 2 hours gone. We returned to the plaza. Progress there was good. Thousands of umbrellas already filled the square. The crew had unfolded them and placed them in a planned pattern. From overhead, they would form a giant smiling face. This had not been in the approved design. I looked at Dana. She blamed Marcus without words. He looked proud. The dragon was half inflated. The fountain had been covered with lightweight floating decorations that would become active when time resumed. Lantern cables waited. We unloaded the missing crates. 3 hours gone. Then we discovered the lanterns had no hooks. The hooks were with the cardboard buildings we had left behind. Dana did not say anything. She simply looked at me. I told her I deserved that. We had spare cord. Lenny designed a loop knot. The crew began attaching lanterns manually. 500 lanterns. Our hands hurt. My bubble felt stretched. 12 people. A cat. Thousands of objects being touched and moved. I had to keep the larger environmental envelope stable. Dr. Bell monitored me. He said my concentration was dropping. I told him I was fine. Then I walked directly into an open umbrella. He revised his opinion. We took a break. Frozen time breaks are surreal. 12 people sat around a silent plaza eating sandwiches while thousands of motionless spectators stood beyond the barriers. The second bell waited above the striker. A balloon hung in the sky. Sir Crunch slept inside an umbrella. Marcus ate chips. Dana checked a clipboard. Even outside time, she had a clipboard. I respected it. After 20 minutes, we resumed. Lanterns. Dragon. Bridge ducks. The bridge was Marcus's responsibility. He had designed a formation. Of course he had. The 800 ducks would spell hello when viewed from above. Except we had recovered only 763 because some crates had never left the original warehouse. Marcus recalculated. Now the ducks would spell Hilo. One letter short. He called it minimalist. I said it looked like a spelling error. He said art was subjective. We compromised. The ducks formed a giant arrow pointing toward the fountain. Why? No reason. Perfect. 5 hours gone. The dragon finally inflated. It was enormous. Its tail stretched across one side of the fountain. Its head rose above the plaza. Then the pressure valve hissed. Leak. Again. Dr. Bell climbed inside an access panel. Marcus held a hand crank light. I held the dragon steady. The crew continued lanterns. Sir Crunch woke up and began climbing the dragon's tail. Lenny chased him. Dana told Lenny to leave the cat. Lenny said Sir Crunch would puncture the dragon. Dana changed her order. 5 hours, 40 minutes. Dr. Bell found the leak. A cracked gasket. No replacement. We had sealing tape. He wrapped it. Pressure stabilized. 6 hours. The cardboard city was incomplete because we had left the missing buildings behind. We used what we had. The tiny city occupied only half its intended area. It looked strange. Barry, who had joined the crew, suggested turning the empty space into a fake lake using blue fabric from a backup scenery kit. Brilliant. We rolled fabric, pinned edges, added lightweight paper boats. The missing buildings became intentional. 6 hours, 30 minutes. Lanterns finished. Umbrellas finished. Dragon finished. Ducks finished. Performers needed repositioning. Costume accessories. Props. Final safety sweep. We had 90 minutes. Dana sent teams in opposite directions. I moved through the plaza checking routes. Nothing blocking exits. Nothing unstable. No loose cables. No sharp edges. No forgotten equipment. Then I noticed the fountain. A decoration had slipped beneath the dragon. I climbed over, reached, pulled it free. My sleeve caught on the dragon. The taped gasket shifted. I froze emotionally inside my own freeze. Dr. Bell heard it. He ran over. Tape peeling. We had one spare strip. He reinforced it. 70 minutes. Then a lantern line sagged. Lenny tightened it. 60. Sir Crunch vanished. Lenny panicked. We searched. No cat. 45 minutes. I told everyone to return to positions. Lenny refused until we found Sir Crunch. Donna agreed. We split up. Under tables. Behind cardboard buildings. Inside umbrella clusters. Nothing. 30 minutes. Marcus rang the pause buggy bell. A meow answered. We followed the sound. Sir Crunch was inside the dragon's open maintenance compartment. He had curled up beside the pressure hose. Lenny lifted him out. The cat was deeply annoyed that his nap had been interrupted. 20 minutes. We ran. Crew members reached the contact release points where they would stand when time resumed. Performers took poses. Dana checked the center route. Dr. Bell secured the dragon panel. Marcus carried Sir Crunch toward a hidden crew area. 10 minutes. I climbed onto my platform, looked around. The plaza had transformed. 10,000 umbrellas. Lanterns. Tiny cardboard skyline around a fake blue lake. Massive dragon. Bridge full of ducks. Performers frozen in theatrical poses. The second bell waited. 5 minutes. Dana signaled all clear. 3. I checked my jacket. Wrong jacket. I had forgotten the costume change. Of course, I ran backstage, found the gold coat, changed. My shoe came untied. I tied it. 1 minute, I ran back. 30 seconds, I climbed the platform. 10, I breathed. 5, and I saw someone walking, not one of my crew. Across the far side of the plaza, behind the frozen crowd, a person in a red hoodie walked between motionless spectators. At first I assumed it was one of ours. Then I noticed nobody from our team was supposed to be there. 4 seconds. The person stopped, turned, looked directly at me. 3. My heart kicked. I ended the freeze early. The second bell rang. The plaza erupted into sound. Wind hit the umbrellas. Lanterns swayed. The dragon shifted. Performers moved. The crowd screamed with amazement. The overhead screen showed the impossible transformation. People pointed. Music started. The dragon released a ridiculous squeak because Marcus had secretly installed a sound tube. Thousands of people laughed. The show was a success. I barely saw any of it. I looked across the crowd. Red hoodie. Gone. I searched after the event. Nothing. I asked the crew. Nobody had been wearing red. I checked footage. Normal cameras had not recorded the freeze. One frame showed the empty plaza before. The next showed the transformed plaza after. No red hoodie. Dr. Bell took me seriously. Marcus did not at first. He asked whether I had finally developed frozen time hallucinations. Dana reminded him about the moving stopwatch. He stopped joking. We reviewed every known rule. People could move if they were touching me, or a connected chain at activation. Animals, too. Certain mechanical systems could leak tiny motion, but not full human movement. The person had not been near me. Not even close. Maybe they were already connected through the plaza structure. Dr. Bell tested that theory. No, my bubble did not automatically include everyone touching the ground. Maybe I had subconsciously brought them in. Possible. But why one stranger? I could not answer. Then Marcus found the missing duck. Not the one from the road, another one. After the festival, we counted the bridge ducks while packing. There should have been 763. There were 762. One gone. Marcus treated this as evidence of a duck thief. I treated it as proof that counting hundreds of identical rubber ducks was a terrible idea. 3 days later, a package arrived at my warehouse. No return address. Inside was one rubber duck. Yellow. Ordinary. Around its neck was a tiny red string. Under it sat a mechanical stopwatch. Not Dr. Bell's design. Different. Older. I wound it. Ticking normal. There was a folded note. Only 6 words. 8 hours is a long blink. Marcus read it twice. Dana read it. Dr. Bell read it and immediately began examining the stopwatch. I looked at the duck, then at the note. Nobody outside our trusted group knew my duration. Nobody should have known I measured it in hours. The festival stranger knew. That night, we tested the new stopwatch. I did not use the full freeze. Just 30 minutes. Marcus, Dana, and Dr. Bell entered with me. The warehouse stopped. The new stopwatch stopped too. We waited. 5 minutes. Nothing. 10. Nothing. 15. Tick. One movement. Then another. Faster than Professor Pebble's old watches. Tick. 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 It began running. Not normally. 1 second every 30 seconds or so. But it was moving on its own inside my freeze. Dr. Bell stared at it. Marcus stopped smiling. Dana asked whether we should end the pause. Before I could answer, Sir Crunch lifted his head. The cat was not part of the bubble. He had been sleeping on a shelf across the warehouse when I activated. He should have been completely frozen. His tail moved. Once. Then his ears twitched. Then both eyes opened. Sir Crunch stood. He looked directly at us. Dr. Bell whispered my name. I did not know what to do. The cat jumped down. He landed on the floor, moving. Without touching me, he walked toward the strange stopwatch. Sniffed it, then he smacked it off the table. The stopwatch hit the floor. Its ticking stopped. Sir Crunch froze instantly in mid-step. We all stared. Marcus looked at me. I looked at Dr. Bell. Dr. Bell looked like someone had replaced science with soup. I resumed time. Sir Crunch completed his step, yawned, and walked away. The stopwatch remained on the floor. We did not touch it for an hour. Then I received a text message. Unknown number. 3 words. Cute cat, Timmy. I had never told the stranger my number. I had never told the stranger my name. That should have made the moment terrifying. Instead, Marcus leaned over my shoulder, read the text, and became offended that the mysterious time person had complimented the cat before complimenting our festival trick. He wanted me to reply. Dana told me not to. Dr. Bell wanted to trace the number through normal methods. I wanted to know whether the sender could move during my freeze. So I typed one question. Who are you? The reply arrived immediately. Someone with 9 hours. I stared at the screen. Marcus read it. For once, he did not make a joke. My maximum was a little over 8 hours. Someone had 9. Maybe they had started earlier. Maybe their growth worked differently. Maybe they had found a better loophole. Maybe the message was a bluff. Then another text arrived. Also, your duck formation was crooked. Marcus exploded. He demanded the phone. He typed 3 paragraphs defending the duck formation before Dana took it away. The mysterious person responded with a laughing face. This was not the dramatic confrontation I had imagined. Somewhere out there was another person connected to stop time, possibly stronger than me. And our first conflict was about duck placement. Perfect. I did not sleep much that night. Not because I was afraid. Because my brain would not stop building possibilities. For years, I had assumed my power was a strange accident attached to me. 1 second. Then 2. Then 3. I had built my entire life around a rule I did not understand. Now a stranger claimed 9 hours. A stopwatch could leak motion. Sir Crunch had moved without contact. The silent world I thought belonged only to me suddenly felt much larger. And the next morning, I met Marcus, Dana, and Dr. Bell at the warehouse. We made a plan. Not a heroic plan. Not a save-the-world plan. Mostly a please stop Marcus from replying to mysterious texts plan. Step 1 was test the strange stopwatch. Step 2 was research the number. Step 3 was review festival access records. Step 4 was eat breakfast because Dr. Bell refused to investigate supernatural time anomalies on an empty stomach. I approved Step 4. We ordered pancakes. While we waited, my phone buzzed again. New message. An address. A time. Midnight. And one final sentence. Bring the cat if he wants. Sir Crunch was sitting on the pause buggy. He meowed. Marcus said that counted as yes. Dana said nobody was bringing a cat to a mysterious midnight meeting. Sir Crunch climbed into the buggy basket. Dana looked at him. The cat looked at Dana. Management lost again. I checked my available freeze. 8 hours, 16 minutes, and still growing. At midnight it would be 1 second longer. 1 tiny second. That was how all of this had started. 1 second to catch toast. 1 second to catch a beaker. 1 second that became minutes. Minutes that became hours. Hours that became a second life hidden between everyone else's moments. I had used it to escape locked rooms, read documents, prepare perfect answers, build impossible stage shows, chase midnight across time zones, move furniture between blinks, ride a homemade rail cart through a frozen night, rescue a wedding from bear slippers, transport pastries across cities, and help an orange cat discover temporary control over physics. Now someone else was waiting. Someone who claimed they could stop the world longer than I could. Marcus loaded snacks into the pause buggy. Dr. Bell packed instruments. Dana packed contracts because she believed any supernatural encounter could be improved by paperwork. Sir Crunch sat in the basket like he had been preparing for this his entire life. I looked at the clock. 11:59. The second hand moved. Tick, tick, tick. For once, I did not freeze it. I waited. Midnight arrived. I felt the familiar click. 1 more second. My phone buzzed. The stranger had sent a photo. It showed a completely frozen street. Cars stopped. Rain hanging in the air. People motionless beneath umbrellas. In the middle of the street stood the red-hooded figure from the festival. They held 1 yellow rubber duck. Behind them, a giant digital clock on a building showed midnight. I zoomed in. On the duck's chest, someone had written a message in black marker. Catch me. Marcus saw it and smiled. Dr. Bell started asking practical questions. Dana started listing rules. Sir Crunch slapped the phone out of my hand. I picked it up. Then I smiled too. My name is Timmy. I can stop time longer every day. And apparently, I have competition.